What's up, guys? It's Molly and Cam in the digital newsroom for Thursday. Oh my gosh, it's already June 22nd, guys. Happy second day of summer. What's up, Cam?
Tonight's also the NBA draft,
You're
which is
so
big on
excited.
me. I mean, yeah, obviously,
You watching
as
it?
a sports guy, I definitely will watch the first couple of picks. The Wizards, my team, unfortunately, don't have any picks actually in this year's draft. We've traded them both away, but always exciting to see who goes at the top of the draft.
That's awesome. So big stuff for sports, guys. We're going to be talking about a lot of different stuff today. A lot of political stuff happening on the Hill. President Trump has an event coming up. We'll take you there shortly once we have it in. But there's just a lot of stuff on Capitol Hill today with Trumpcare, or the GOP healthcare bill coming down today. The official bill is set to be seen today. So Pelosi has some words on that. Democratic House members, Democratic senators. There's going to be a lot about that topic. But first, guys, we're going to go over to the D.C. mayor. Muriel Bowser is talking about rat reduction in D.C. That's right. How to decrease the rodent population here by way of various initiatives that are set to be taken here in the city. Now, it's been said possibly D.C. has one of the worst problems. That's sort of subjective. I think there's yet to be quantified about the actual how extreme the problem is, that is. But the mayor is highlighting that in her talk today. So we're going to go right over there. This is happening right here in D.C., actually close by to us in upper northwest D.C. So here's Muriel Bowser live right now on the rodent population.
Made at Octo, the additional staff that we've made, that we placed at Octo, have helped residents and business owners get help more quickly. So let me turn to Dr. Nesmith, who will talk about the Department of Health's initiatives. And I want to recognize our vector team at the Department of Health, who get out across all of our neighborhoods and are doing a fantastic job for us. And we want to look for ways that we can give them some help. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. It's really a great opportunity to be out in the community today and having an opportunity to recognize our rodent and vector control team, who do a fantastic job of working collaboratively with businesses and with our residents to help improve the hygiene and the cleanliness of our communities here in the District of Columbia. Last year with Mayor Bowser, we launched our Rat Riddance initiative, which was really a concerted effort to improve the cleanliness of our communities and to reduce the rodent population here in the District of Columbia. We have a very vibrant community, a thriving community in the District of Columbia, where we have residents and businesses that live and exist together in thriving corridors such as this one. And we want that to continue. We want our businesses to prosper. We want our residents to live in livable and walkable communities, because we know that that helps to improve the health and well-being of our communities, where our residents can walk to the grocery stores that they need to be able to buy healthful foods, where our residents can live in communities where they can shop, where they can dine, where their children can walk to the schools that provide them high quality educational opportunities. And we know that when we have those mixed use communities, there's also the opportunity for more trash. And when there's an opportunity for more trash, there's an opportunity for our rodent population to have more food too. And so one of the things that we set out to do last year with the launch of a Rat Riddance program was to provide more education to our residents and to our businesses of ways that they could reduce the access to that food that those rodents like to have. And so with the Rat Riddance initiative, we kicked off last year with providing a lot of education to our businesses and our residents in terms of ways to safely store food that you may have on your property, ways to best keep your trash, making sure that it has metal lid containers, that you keep the trash inside until close to trash pickup day, things of that nature. We also have what we call a wire mesh distribution program, so that when you have nice shrubs on your property, both for good landscaping in the nice thriving commercial districts like this, or even on your personal property, you can prevent opportunities for rodents to be able to hide, and because they need to have a place to live. So those are the types of things that we have going on in the department beginning last year. As Mayor Bowser described today, we're kicking off some of our more business-oriented programs and initiatives that will help support our businesses in being able to invest in better ways to store their commercial waste, but also when our residents are out and about in enjoying our neighborhoods and enjoying our communities, having better ways to dispose of their trash so our trash bins are not overflowing in our communities, and so that our public works department can be responsive, and as well as our business improvement districts being responsive to the removal of that waste, helping to keep our city clean for both our residents and our visitors who come and enjoy a thriving District of Columbia. So we're very happy to be a partner with the District of Columbia. Our rodent and vector control team responds very quickly when you all request our services. We like to see neighborhoods working together. If you have a problem in your neighborhood and you give us a call and you have a team in your neighborhood who wants us to provide a service to you, it's always great when you're working as a team to help provide access to property for us so we can come out and provide our abatement services in a one-time effort and then do some follow-up treatments to you in 7 to 10 days. When you all work well together as a neighborhood and a community and then work well with us as a department and an agency, we can do a much better job of controlling the rodent control population. So we look forward to continuing to serve you all as your health department and continuing to have a great rat riddance initiative here in the District of Columbia. Thank you.
So the doctor talked about our community partnerships, and indeed individual neighbors can be helpful if we notice an issue. Frequently, Mr. Brown and his team like to go out and deal with an entire block, and coordination among neighbors can be helpful. Our ANC commissioners are very helpful in that as well. So let me acknowledge our ANC commissioners who are here: Jerry Malitz, Dan Bradfield, and Randy Speck. Give them a big round of applause and thank you for being here. I also want to recognize the Ward 3 Mokers, who are my liaisons in the community with ANCs and civic associations and with all the neighbors, and Philip and Ian are here, so they can be helpful in all of these regards. So we're going to hear quickly from our Chief Technology Officer. It doesn't, you don't always link technology in our rat riddance policies, but in fact, there is a link, and Achana is going to talk about that.
Thank you, Mayor. And there is a link for technology and everything that impacts the city. One of the things we in city government are trying to do is to ensure that technology really helps solve real world problems. So when we're talking about issues such as rat or trash or even trash pileup, how can technology and some of the solutions we're looking at help achieve the goals that the city has? And so I want to talk a little bit about our smart waste management effort. And this is really a coordinated effort between DPW that really has the operational experience to run this. The health perspective, Dr. Netzbeth teams, especially what DOH has been doing. And then on the technology side, where we come in and say, how can we use the next generation technologies of sensors and capabilities to really drive forward issues like safety, issues like cleanliness, issues like trash pileup, or even just improving the quality of life for residents. So the Smart Waste Management Pilot, I have a handout which we will give out to all of you that really talks about what we tried to do here. As we put sensors in all these trash bins, we work closely with DPW to really identify what we need to start capturing. What are the levels of trash can? What does that as a city tell us about our city that we're managing? Where are our areas of need? And where are the areas of risk? And right now, we're in a very reactive mode. 311 that is run very efficiently by Karima gives us all the data, but it's a reactive set of data, and we're trying to move the city into a proactive stance where we learn this information before you complain about it, and we can proactively address it. So the Smart Waste Management Pilot has been deployed in March. For the next 6 months, we have 400 sensors that we'll be collecting data from, and we'll be working very closely with DPW and DOH to analyze that data, as well as the 311 data from OUC. We're going to be making all this information available to the public through our open data platform, so it will be out for you guys to see. In addition to the Smart Waste Management Pilot, there are other ways we wanted to make sure people have the ability to report issues. So on the Text to 311 platform that we've been closely coordinating with OUC, we now have a feature to report any rat reports that you have. So option 8 on Text to 311 lets you report that you want an investigation done if you see rats. And if you report that operationally, I think there's a 14-day turnaround for DOH. Yes. I'm just telling you what's in the text message that you will see. But this is, again, a way for us to just get a service out there while we're looking at these data sets. And we look forward to working with the agencies to get the service out to you. But our goal, again, is to make technology the enabler. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. So we're happy to take any questions. Yes, Tom.
Mayor, why this corner? You have a lot of corners with rats.
Well, what we know, I think, as you heard us mention, Tom, is what we want to work with all of our commercial corridors, but especially where they abut residential areas. I think that's where we see a lot of complaints. And we want to make sure all of our property owners, both residential and commercial, have the best waste management strategies that they can. Last year, this time, we were on Barracks Row, similarly situated right up against a residential area. We learned a lot about how building owners and tenants are managing trash and doing things even as they build out the facilities to maintain trash indoors longer in a way that works for the business and works for the community. So that's why we're here. So our Department of Small and Local Business, as well as our Mokers in Clean City, will be working together with the ANC commissioners and the property owners to make sure that everybody, there's no reason why this corridor in Chevy Chase can't go out and get those compactors, which we know can help with waste management. Yes, Matt. Okay, so I'm either going to turn to Dr. Nesbitt, and she may invite her rat experts to come up and join us.
So the answer is yes. We do believe the abatement techniques we use are highly effective. However, there is a number of factors that contribute to the rodent population increasing, and so I'll let Mr. Brown address that.
Yes, the poison works, but we have to eliminate the food. If the food is not eliminated, it's hard to kill the rats. So sanitation is pest control. We can't answer that. We just go by the number of complaints.
Right. So one of the things we like to say is there is no way to do a rodent census. And one of the ways that I think a lot of people get a lot of anxiety is that you see these reports that come out that say Washington, D.C. is in the top 3, the top 4, the top 5 for rodents in this country. Well, many of those studies or many of those things that are put out are based on one of the largest pest control companies across the United States and the number of calls that they get for service. It's not based on there actually being a rodent census in the same way that we do a human census in this country every 10 years or annual estimates of the human population. So our team does not actually go out and count the number of rodents that are present in the city or the number of rodents that die from a result of a application of rodenticide. What they do, give me 1 second, Mr. Sherwood. What they do is they actually count the presence of rodent burrows, which are the holes that the rodents create in order to be able to live in a particular area, and use that as an estimate of the severity of the problem in a particular neighborhood. One of the things that we'll be doing in combination with OCTO and OUC is using that as a better gauge of the severity of a problem in a neighborhood as opposed to the actual number of complaints that come in from 311, which is a new input of data that we'll have to be able to better quantify what have been commonly referred to as rodent hotspots in the district.
I think you referenced the Orkin study, the Orkin report earlier this year. I know you didn't want to say Orkin, but I am. I actually called them up, and they said that their review includes the entire metropolitan Washington area, not just the district.
Correct.
The rats in Arlington are just as important.
Correct. So thank you for adding that and not making it just the Washington, D.C. proper. But I think it's very important for people to know that it is not possible to actually, we don't tag and count each specific rodent. So we do want to make sure people understand that the way that we're trying to actually improve the way that we quantify the severity of the problem and deploy our resources to be able to address it. But what Mr. Brown said is key. Sanitation is rodent control.
Yes, ma'am. The question was, what agency do businesses contact? And it's the Department of Small and Local Businesses. And we're going to give you some information. They are going to be administering the $1 million grant. I understand that this equipment is between $15,000 and $20,000 per, so we can help a lot of businesses. And I want to call everybody's attention to it because we want to get the program, this pilot, done by September 30th. So business owners, ANCs, please reach out to us so that we can help you with that equipment. I also wanted to mention one thing, and that is we know when there is a lot of development activity and the earth is disturbed, it disturbs where rats, rodents, and other wildlife and critters live. And so we should know too that all of our permitting requirements require that developers have an active rodent management plan, that it should start before the development begins and it should be active throughout the course of the whole development. So neighbors and ANCs can also help us with that so that we are ensuring that those plans are being implemented prior, during, excuse me, and during a project. Yes, ma'am.
Are the businesses going to be required to get compactors? Because the dumpsters right now on the residence, all the dumpsters here have large cracks that are designed into the dumpsters. There's not holes, it's not just deep. They have 3-inch gaps between the covers. They are a feast for the road. DOAs have been, they become what we call, they're wonderful. But they tell us that they can poison all they can, but it's not going to do an ounce of good with the type of dumpsters that are.
Well, what we will do, and businesses are required to manage waste in, the Dr. or Gerard might know the specifics of the statute. They're required to manage the waste in such a way that it doesn't allow for rodents. And that includes a certain, a number of times that pickup is required and the like. And I think the container is also required in the law. Is that right? Okay, so we may need to do some work in the statute to require, the best containers. It is not a requirement to have compactors at this stage.
I have a question.
Yes.
So following up on that question, and I want to say the Department of Health has been really wonderful.
Thank you.
But the problem that we have is, the city can pour tax.
If you guys are just joining us, you're looking at live video right now. The DC Mayor Muriel Bowser answering questions about the rat problem, the rodent problem in DC. She says that complaints about rats are up 65% from 2015 to 2016. Those were the numbers of calls to 311. It went up that amount. And so she's addressing it now, and some people asking questions here about the initiatives that they're looking to take to help this problem.
Is the city, aside from giving money to the businesses to buy compactors that may not actually be necessary, is the city going to take an initiative to fine and force the business owners to just shut the food waste dumpsters so the rats are not running in and out?
I think that's exactly what we're talking about. What we've talked about is this going to require a lot of approaches in making sure that we have the right containers and that our law requires the right containers so that when we go out to do enforcements, those fines actually stick and have some teeth. And so we're agreeing with you, and we want to make sure that happens. But we also know education goes a long way, and that's why we're here. That's why we're going to call on our DSLBD, ANCs, community members to say these are the resources available. Avail yourself of these resources. Follow the law. And if you don't, this is what happens. So that I got you.
Come and look at the alley back here.
I heard your question, ma'am. Thank you.
For Brooklyn Manor residents who are talking about the rats who are running through the building because there's no effort from the city to force the landlords or the restaurant owners.
Well, I wouldn't agree with you on that. We have our staff at DPW and DOH out every day, and that's what they're doing.
Well, the restaurant owners have been educated. We've been writing them, we've asked them to seal the dumpsters.
Got it.
It's just not happening.
Thank you.
Any other press questions?
other community questions? Thank you, everybody.
Camera's done.
All right, guys, back into the newsroom. Quick little piece there. That one lady, like you said, Cam, was
Yeah, it was kind of coming at her. I couldn't make out her questions really, just because obviously
she wasn't mic'd up.
She didn't have a microphone. But definitely wasn't a question or a series of questions that Muriel Bowser really wanted to answer or was happy to receive. Something kind of the attacking nature.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to the rat problem here, I mean, I don't obviously have the statistics in front of me, but she's saying the calls have been up, and that is more of a severe problem. We heard some sort of bystanders talking in our newsroom earlier in our meeting about the problem being much worse, or what someone thinks is worse than New York City. For me, it's sort of like rats are a fact of life of the city. I've sort of dealt with it as I have, but it is gross, and it's hard to kind of associate them with places that you eat at. The restaurants.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that one of the issues is there've kind of been like pictures or videos circulating, right, about seeing like just like a bunch of rats like around restaurants, or like on the trash, and you'll get like 20 of them.
Yeah.
And I think that it's like that almost contributes to this narrative more than even. The number of calls or anything like that. I think that, if you see one rat, you're like, it's a rat, I've got to do something about it, but you accept it, as kind of a fact of life of living in the city.
It's
or
bleeding,
living in
it runs in and out of your life.
Yeah, it runs in and out, you're like, gross. Like, and then you move on.
Yeah.
But it's that picture of, you see 20 of them, and now you're like, just, subconsciously or whatever, you think like, like that's disgusting, that's a problem. That's not just a one-off moment. That's an issue, and it almost might be one of those situations where, like, you don't think about all the times that you pass a restaurant and you don't see rats. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't go through your mind.
It's second nature that you
but
see
that
them.
one time that you do see 20 of them, that sticks in your mind. That sticks in the public perception, especially when it's like a picture that's going to go around. Something like that's going to stick in kind of the public eye and stick out way more and kind of contribute to the public perception way more than 20 businesses that don't have any.
No, I totally agree. That's a really good point to say. And Mayor Bowser here was highlighting some new initiatives, including a solar trash, smart litter bin type initiative to help work against this. And we heard one of the guys there say, we need to deal with the trash first. Food lying around, trash lying around is always going to attract rats. We have to be careful with that. So there's a lot of steps, I think, personally, that need to be taken before they can just fix it as a citywide problem.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. It's like so much of it is kind of personal. If like you as a homeowner or as a business owner, control your own trash and make sure to dispose of it responsibly and keep it where you're supposed to in the bins, like everything closed up. That then this issue might not even reach the city level. I mean, obviously there are steps that can be taken from Muriel Bowser's perspective, but so much of it really starts like at the grassroots level.
Totally, yeah, good way to put that. Let's change gears really quick and talk NBA draft tonight.
Yeah, NBA draft.
He's so excited.
This has actually been one of the more exciting off seasons kind of in recent memory. There have been a bunch of trades this year, regarding the 76ers, the Celtics, the Lakers, so some of the, especially with the Celtics and the Lakers, two of the biggest historical franchises in the NBA, not franchises you're used to seeing pick at the top of the draft. So obviously they've got the markets, they've got, in the Celtics case, a winning team already, so making headlines.
You looking at any specific players being from Duke and whatnot?
So it's actually Jason Tatum, a Dookie, so one of my favorite players, is projected to go in the top 3, 4, 5 picks. I've heard some reports that he might go to the Celtics at 3.
Cool.
The Celtics obviously traded down, so they had the first pick. They traded down to the 76ers. The 76ers are probably going to draft Markelle Fultz, who's actually a local kid.
Oh, right. We were talking about this.
From the DMV.
Super cool.
Should is projected to go number 1. pretty confidence level's pretty high on that. And then probably Lonzo Ball, who's from California, played at UCLA in college from California. Gonna go to the Lakers, so kind of a hometown kid out there as well. And then Tatum might go as high as 3 to the Celtics. So
super cool.
I'm excited for it, and I would be surprised if we don't see more trades today or before the draft. So.
Yeah, I used to have friends that it was like a lot of my guy friends or whatever in college. It was their favorite night of the year. It was like Christmas for them. Is this more important to you or the NFL draft? Do you think? What do you? I mean, they're both big nights. They're fun.
I actually, I think the NBA draft is bigger just because, just because the impact that one player has on the NBA, on an NBA team, is so much bigger often than one player on an NFL team. I mean, you've got 53 players on an NFL roster and 22 starting at any given time. So even if you draft, I mean, quarterbacks obviously have a big impact, but even if you draft, the best defensive lineman of all time, that's one 22nd of your team that you're drafting. Whereas, if you draft, LeBron James, if you draft Kevin Durant, that's 1/5 of your team that you just drafted. So just the impact that one guy can have is so big in the NBA. So I think that's why
I see.
You see draft picks traded less because they're so important, especially when you're at the top of the draft, and you really are drafting in one pick. You can draft your future. Like Markelle Fultz, if he turns out to be what people almost expect him to be or hope to be, especially as a Sixers fan. I've got one friend who's a big Sixers fan, and he thinks that Markelle Fultz is like the second coming of Jesus Christ. So no, it's if he turns out to be as good as some expect, that literally turns your franchise around in one pick.
So cool.
So it's especially through the first top 10, and this is one of the better drafts we've had in recent memory.
Yeah.
People think you can get really an all-star level player through the top 9 or 10 players, which is not common at all. Usually you're looking at maybe 5 guys with that kind of at least expectation. Obviously, people come out of nowhere, but with that type of ceiling and expectation. So, huge night, and many people, like you talked about it being Christmas. I mean,
some people say that they grab their buddies beers and they do it.
Yeah,
right.
And it's huge. I mean, the thing about the off season is great. Like I saw this in the other day in the media, and it kind of struck me was during the season, especially in today's NBA, the NBA gets a lot of criticism because the Golden State Warriors are so good. Many view them, the season as nothing more than a formality, where they win a bunch of games and they're going to win the title. Like they took care of the Cavs, and the Cavs are supposed to be really the only thing they could possibly stand in their way. Maybe the Spurs, but then Kawhi Leonard got hurt. So really, you've got one winner throughout the NBA season, whereas in the off season with the draft pick, all 30 teams get to benefit from. All 30 fan bases get to be engaged and get to be excited about the future. It's really, there's just so much hope this time of year that it really is in many ways. I mean, not better than playing actual basketball, but definitely one of the more fun times to be a fan, just because of all the things that are going on.
Totally, guys. And if you guys are watching on the web, on our site, or on YouTube, let us know what you think too. If you're a big fan, if you're gonna be chilling, grabbing the beers, and just watching it tonight, and what you feel about that. That's intern Cam and his take on tonight. Very exciting.
Yeah. Let us know who you're a fan of, who you want your favorite team to take.
Maybe what team, or what university team has your support too, and let us know where you're watching from. We want to see where you guys are all watching from. We're going to switch gears a little bit too. Paul Ryan is up now. We just saw the source come in. He's going to be talking healthcare. The GOP, the Senate GOP reveals their healthcare bill today. And it's a big deal. People are talking about it on the Hill. So we're going to go right over to Paul Ryan before we switch it over to another event.
Come out and throw the first pitch. It was a very, very, very cool thing to see. I saw Steve this morning. His spirits are up. He's talking. He's doing well, and he sends his regards and his thanks for everyone's thoughts and prayers. This has been a busy week, delivering on our agenda for the country. Yesterday, for those of you who may have missed it, Republicans and Democrats came together to send important Veterans Administration reform legislation to the president's desk. We've all seen the scandals of the last few years. We saw the waiting list. We saw the scandals. Things clearly need to change at the Veterans Administration, and this bill is going to help deliver the kind of fundamental reform that is needed to solve those problems. It will help our veterans get the world-class care and treatment that they deserve and that they have earned. We still have a lot of work to do, but we're going to keep at it until we as a country can say that we are really and honestly keeping our promises that we have made to our veterans. And then later today we expect a big bipartisan vote for Glenn Thompson's bill to improve career and technical education. This initiative is going to make it easier for people to get the skills they need to fill better, higher quality, higher paying jobs. A good technical skills job can mean everything. It can be the foundation of a successful career and a great future. I see this everywhere I look in my own home state of Wisconsin. This bill can make a real difference for American workers. So, bottom line, every day here, we are working to address the problems that people face in their daily lives. These are just two more examples of us coming together and delivering on our agenda. Questions?
Thank you, Speaker Ryan. Have you seen the Senate version of the health care bill yet?
I have not. I've been briefed on the Senate version. I've been a little busy myself. I've been briefed on the Senate version of the health care bill.
And can you give us your reaction to what you've been briefed on? Is it something you think you can
Yeah,
get
look, believe me, I know how hard this process is from personal experience. From what I understand, their bill tracks in many ways along the lines of the House bill. I think that's very good. I'm not going to opine on their process. They gave us the space to go through our deliberative process. The last thing I want to do is be disrespectful of their process. They have a lengthy process ahead of them. I think the bottom line is I want them to pass the bill so we can all get on with keeping our promise. Got to remember, the system's collapsing. It's a real look. Anthem Blue Cross yesterday pulled out of Wisconsin. That's one of the most flagship health insurers we've had in our state for many, many years. So this system is in a tailspin. We made a promise that we would repeal and replace this law. I'm very happy that the Senate has gone through the work of putting together a bill that keeps that promise. And so, yeah, I'm eager for them to pass it, but I'm not going to opine on the details as they go along.
And you referenced the process. They have largely done this behind closed doors. You, in a recent interview, talked about the fact that your process was open. You were very proud of that fact. Are you comfortable with the way they went about this?
You release legislation after you've drafted legislation, not while you draft legislation. I think this is sort of a talking point in search of a problem. You don't release a bill before you finish writing the bill. You write the bill, then you release the bill. That's what the Senate's done.
But they want to vote next week. Is that enough time for the American public to digest it and debate it?
Do you think that increases in discretionary spending or appropriation should be matched by spending cuts elsewhere in the budget?
Yeah, if you're asking for if we have a cap adjustment, should we have offsets and mandatory? I think the answer is yes. The question is quality and quantity.
Because you said the health care bill in the Senate does track so closely with the House bill, do you anticipate that the House would take up the Senate bill or make further changes? It's premature to say how we haven't made that decision yet. They're just beginning their process, so we're just not at that point of making that kind of decision yet.
Can you address the Senate sanctions bill? I know that there's this blue slip problem. I understand it's.
How many of you know what the blue slip problem is? All right, so like 4 of you. So this is a very technical issue. But it's the Constitution, so we take that very seriously. My understanding is Ways and Means is giving the technical assistance that the Senate needs to make sure that they conform with the Constitution, the origination clause, and the blue slip. Ed Royce, chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, has indicated that he's very eager to move this bill. So we want to get this bill cleaned up. We need Foreign Affairs to do their scrub of this legislation, which is what we do on every time a bill comes over from the Senate. But Chairman Royce has indicated he wants to get moving on this quickly, and we want to honor that.
Is that going to be a formal committee referral where they're actually going to mark up that bill, or
don't know the answer to that? We would just want to get moving on it, but we've got to honor the blue slip, which is a constitutional origination clause issue. That's why we asked Ways and Means, which is in charge of this, to make sure that they give Senate Foreign Affairs or Foreign Relations the technical work they need so they can get this right.
And you personally support the policy?
Yeah, I support sanctions. You know, I've always supported sanctions. I'm going to let HVAC, Foreign Affairs, do their scrub to make sure that the bill is written the right way, that it's in good shape. But Ed wants to get moving on this bill, and I support doing that.
Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
So President Trump's
I apologize.
Yes, sir.
Who you with?
I'm CNS News.
CNN.
So President Trump's 2018 budget calls for eliminating the federal funding for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Do you support that proposal, and will you follow the funding elimination of the CBP outlined in the president's budget?
I'm going to have to refer you to the appropriators. They are just getting ready. They're just getting started on their bills. So I don't get too deep into micro details like that. I just refer you to the appropriators.
Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A budget question for you. Diane Black, the budget chairwoman, is really supportive of the idea of doing $150 in mandatory cuts. Some of your other chairmen not so comfortable with the idea of coming up with those savings. I know you're still having your family discussions, but how do you envision sort of like going through this? Do you think maybe there's a halfway point? What are you doing right now?
Deja vu all over again. I served as budget chair or ranking member for 8 years. I had these kinds of conversations each and every year with the other authorizing chairs. She is doing a fantastic job of getting consensus on the kinds of instructions we need to make sure that we get some savings out of the budget. Every budget should have savings, and Diane Black is doing that just like any other year and any other budget chair should. And so she's just basically going through, talking to each authorizer about the kind of savings targets they can hit. That's the way the budget process works. So I'm confident she'll get that done, that she'll find consensus with our other chairs, and that's how you put a budget together. Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, do you think it would be appropriate for the Senate Judiciary Committee to subpoena former Attorney General Loretta Lynch?
I'm not going to comment on what they're doing. That's not even in our bailiwick. Yeah.
I was just going to ask you, knowing how hard it was for you to pass the House bill, the health care plan, was there any red flags when you were briefed on the bill that came to your attention where you thought, hey, my members, I'm going to lose 15 or 20 of this?
No, I haven't seen any of that yet because I think, like I said, I know how hard this is to pass a bill like this. What was helpful to us that we didn't have Senate leadership playing armchair quarterback with us. The last thing I want to do is play armchair quarterback with them. I want to respect their process, so I'm not going to opine on the micro details. I haven't read through all of the bill myself. I've just been briefed on its basic contents. But what's important is that they pass their bill, that we get this process going so that we can keep our promise.
Last question.
Can you tell us more about Scalise?
We don't have time.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Mr. Scalise?
Well, I'll let
his
the doctors.
condition, his,
Yeah,
how long
what we
it's
have
gonna
decided
take?
is we're not going to be the ones commenting on his health prognosis or progress, other than to say I had a great meeting with Steve-O this morning, and he's bright, he's alert. He just wanted to go through the agenda. He wanted to go through the latest whip. He wanted to go through what's coming to the floor next week. He wanted a brief on work, and he was just so thankful. For also, by the way, we're doing blood drives here. He's very thankful for that. He's very thankful for the outpouring of support that he's received from friends and colleagues and people from Louisiana. And so he was just very, very taken and moved. And just to hear him talk about, Bailey and Crystal and his affection for them and his thankfulness for them, it's really something. But he seemed like he was doing well. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
So that was Paul Ryan giving actually his weekly address, and we expected him to kind of talk about healthcare, which is all coming down the pipeline today, and he did. Also addressing Steve Scalise. You heard that question at the top and the end of that little press conference there as well. Sounds like he's doing better, which is great. Representative Scalise that we've been talking about for the last week. So I'm eager to sort of see him recover, get better, and talk more about things and maybe push things that are important to him forward. He'll have a little more of a name as well after this whole incident sort of wraps up, but pretty scary stuff that they went through, of course. So more to come on that, guys. Healthcare. So you're looking at a live shot of the Capitol right now. Inside there in the Senate chambers, actually Chuck Schumer is up at the stand right now talking about this. I'm just seeing this tweet that just came out, but he said something like the healthcare bill is a wolf in sheep's clothing, but it's something like it's even worse of I forget the tweet now. I need to find it. But anyway, he was making a big statement about the bill. What we know is that it will cut Medicaid, it will reduce the penalties or end the penalties for not having health insurance, and lots of other things. that are coming in on this. So if you're interested in healthcare, you can also follow along. You can actually see a copy of the bill to yourself online at budget.senate.gov, and you can take a peek at it if you're interested in that. It's definitely some hard stuff to go through, I would think, like the wording and the lingo. But if that's your thing, definitely check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I might just wait for a summary.
I know, it's so
Personally,
hard
it's
to
just
go
pretty
through.
long. Like in my internship last year, I had to go through bills sometimes.
Oh, you did?
And it's a drag. It's a drag. Just because they've got there's so many clauses. I mean, it's a legal document in every sense of the word. So if you feel like parsing through a bunch of legalese, then go for it. But I might just wait for a summary.
Yeah. I'm getting a live picture right now of something inside what looks like it's inside the Capitol. I'm not quite sure what this is. It looks like somebody protesting inside.
Yeah, somebody protesting.
There's Mitch McConnell's office right there.
I would assume made some kind of effort to maybe get to McConnell or to somebody.
Maybe some sort of gathering of
protest
inside the halls. It looks like this is possibly tape playback because we're getting this in chunks.
And they're removing, they have to remove people one at a time.
Wow. Don't touch Medicaid, save our liberty is what they're saying?
Yeah, don't cut Medicaid. Interesting. Very interesting.
Hey, Tanya. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Where are you watching from? Let us know. Wow, that was interesting footage, but it does look like it was played back because we got an alert to it, and then we got it, and there were some cameras there. I saw some staffers in the hallway Snapchatting that. Interesting. I'll have to text some of my friends who work on the Hill and see if they caught any of that. But yeah, obviously, guys, healthcare causing a big sort of emboldened debate and battle within. Now, right now in the chambers, senators are discussing this. If I have more of this video, if more comes in, I'm going to bring it to you guys. I'm going to keep a monitor on that. But for now, let's go inside the chambers and see what they are saying about it as this all is taking place in the Capitol.
To the process that led to the Affordable Care Act. So I put forward now a parliamentary inquiry. Is the chair able to confirm that the Committee on Finance considered S. 1796, the America's Health Future Act, which was ultimately incorporated into H. 3590, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, in executive session on 8 separate calendar days prior to reporting the bill favorably?
The Secretary of the Senate's office through the Senate Library confirms that.
I have information that indicates that 135 amendments were considered in committee, and that of those, 14 amendments offered by Republican members of the committee or offered in a bipartisan manner were adopted during the consideration of S. 1796. Is the chair able to confirm that?
The Secretary of the Senate's office through the Senate Library confirms that.
Therefore, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that no motion to proceed to calendar number 120, H.R. 1628, be in order until the bill has been the subject of executive session meetings in the Committee on Finance and the Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, during which amendments from the majority and the minority received votes, and the bill has been favorably reported from those committees.
Is there objection?
Mr. President.
Majority Whip.
Reserving the right to object. Mr. President, our colleagues are coming here today and saying they want to participate in the process to fix what's broken in the Affordable Care Act. Yet I have in my hand a newspaper article about a letter that the Democratic leader and his colleagues sent saying they refuse to participate in the process unless we drop all of our plans to repeal and replace Obamacare. So they refuse to participate in the process. And I would just point out, Mr. President, that the failures of Obamacare didn't just start today. It's been failing over 7 years, and they did nothing. Nothing to help the millions.
Hey, Tanya, and everybody else, thanks for watching. So you're looking at senators right now discuss this GOP healthcare bill that's coming down today. Now, the bill is online. It's available online to take a look at. It's about 200 pages. And what you were seeing earlier, I know you were asking what they were protesting. I think that was playback from earlier this morning, people protesting outside of Mitch McConnell's office, essentially protesting the version of this bill to change up essentially Obamacare and what we've seen in the past administration. The bill, what we know is that the bill is slated to cut Medicaid in how much and what form, I don't quite know. I think we have yet to sort of hear from different people on different sides of this more about it. But I do know that the Senate version is slated not to cut it as much as the House version is. The Senate version is what comes down today. It's been estimated that the House bill, the House version of the bill, would have 23 million people lose health coverage. So it's been a big debate when Trump came into office about this, and so we're going to be hearing a lot more today as we hear people discuss this on the Senate floor, as well as we're going to get some tape of possibly some protesters, maybe even more than what we just saw as well. So we're going to keep an eye on that and kind of jump you around different feeds that we're getting in today. Right now, also coming down, just moments ago, President Trump met with some Silicon Valley tech CEOs at the White House to discuss the future of that. So some pretty cool stuff there. I know the CEO of Sprint was there, the CEO of AT&T as well, and that was his big event this morning. So we're going to check in there once we get that tape as well. But you're looking at live picture right now inside the Senate, and we'll stay here for a little bit longer, then I'll jump it over to the event at the White House.
Quickly, and has been out. And even though it's considered a discussion draft, or we don't know what it is at this point, we have it. We are analyzing it. What our leader, the Democratic leader, indicated is what we have been able to read in this discussion draft, which is not only more of the same, but is worse for seniors, those in nursing homes, for children in Michigan, and across the country. That's what's in this, which we now have, whatever it is called. So I would ask the majority whip, instead of burning down the House at this point in terms of ripping apart the healthcare system, would you join with us in putting forward a bill that would allow Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices for seniors, which my hospitals and insurance companies tell me are one of the driving forces that are raising the cost of health care. Would you be willing to work with us on a bill to lower prescription drug prices and allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of America's seniors?
Mr. President.
Majority Whip.
Mr. President, I would say to the senator from Michigan that we'd be happy to work with you on high drug prices. That's a serious problem and one of the primary cost drivers of healthcare costs today. But this bill doesn't touch Medicare at all. And so we leave intact the healthcare for seniors, and it's not touched by this at all. But when the time comes for us to deal with Medicare, I think that's a debate we should have and we would welcome.
Mr. President, to the distinguished leader, I would just simply say I'm proposing that instead of this, which is essentially burning down the House in America in terms of health care, that you instead join with us. And what you've admitted is one of the top drivers of health care costs in this country, which is what we want to tackle, Mr. President. We want to bring down the costs. We want to bring down the cost of prescription drugs, out-of-pocket costs for everyone whose copays and premiums are too high. That we want to do, taking away nursing home care, taking away the ability for a parent to take their child to the doctor, or someone with cancer to get the treatment they need, or a small business owner to be blocked from getting health care because of a pre-existing condition. We consider that burning down the House. We are opposed to that. Frankly, we'd love to have a ceremony and light this on fire, and then come back together and then work together on the number one driver, which is the cost of prescription drugs.
Mr. President.
Majority Whip.
Mr. President, maybe I misunderstood the question initially. I would suggest to the senator from Michigan that it is the Democrats under Obamacare who burned down the House because the individual market for health care has been decimated. And we're coming to the rescue of those millions of people who don't have employer-provided insurance. They don't get their coverage under Medicare or any other government program. They get it from the individual market. You're talking about individuals and small businesses. Right now, people have
some interesting little facts, guys, about the health care bill that is emerging today. It was drafted in secret by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and 13 other Republicans. And actually, it faces total uniform opposition from the Democrats. So if just 3 Republicans in the Senate defect from this, 3 of the 52 Republican senators, then it's going to be a setback for the Trump administration. So it's a big talker. It's a big thing that people are debating today. Right now, I'm getting in tape of President Trump earlier at the White House with the tech people, the Silicon Valley CEOs, talking about emerging technology. Let's jump over there.
I want to thank my Office of Science and Technology, and this has been a great office. They have done such incredible work for organizing today's event and for bringing these wonderful business leaders, and they are at the top, together to talk about the importance of emerging technologies. I want to thank Secretary Ross for joining us today. Wilbur, thank you very much. And we just got back from Iowa last night, big speech in Iowa. That was an amazing group of people. Those people were excited. I guess most people saw it, but they were excited. Wilbur's done a fantastic job, and I want to thank you very much for it, Wilbur. Everybody understands it. Wilbur, as Jeff, as you know, Wilbur is known as just Wilbur on Wall Street. They don't even call him Wilbur Ross. They just say, oh, Wilbur's involved, right? He's done a great job. Thank you. And Mr. Vice President, thank you very much for being here. We've had some busy schedules, and we have a thing called healthcare that you may hear is percolating on the outside as we discuss. And I think it's going to come out. Obamacare is a disaster. It's dead, totally dead, and we're putting in a plan today that's going to be negotiated. We'd love to have some Democrat support, but they're obstructionists. They'll never support. We won't get one, no matter how good it is, but we will hopefully get something done, and it'll be something with heart and very meaningful. And Steve, it's great to have you here, by the way. Really good. You've done a great job. I always say you got a hell of a lot of money for that sale. I don't think you've been given enough. I mean, I don't think you were ever given enough credit for the deal you did for your shareholders. What a deal that was. Too many years of excessive government regulation. We have had regulation that's been so bad, so out of line, that it's really hurt our country. And as you see, on a daily basis, we're getting rid of regulation. In fact, Dodd-Frank is now being cut, and cut very substantially. We'll have tremendous safeguards, but we're going to have banks that are going to be able to loan money to people so they can open businesses and do what they used to be able to do in this country. My administration has been laser focused on removing the government barriers to job growth and prosperity. We formed a deregulation task force inside every agency to find and eliminate wasteful, intrusive, and job-killing regulations, of which we've had many. We want our innovators to dream big, like the folks around me and surrounding me in this room. And we want them to create new companies and to create lots of jobs. Your industry has been incredible. Your representation of your companies, this is the reason you're here, has been something that has created so many millions of new American jobs, and probably jobs in many other countries also. But we're interested right now in America first. We're on the verge of new technological revolutions that could improve virtually every aspect of our lives, create vast new wealth for American workers and families, and open up bold new frontiers in science, medicine, and communication. Today's conversation will move America one step closer to that bright future that we're all talking about and all longing for in your world. I would love to hear about the discussions you've had this morning with our team, the White House, and get your thoughts on ways government can help unleash the next generation of technological breakthroughs that will transform our lives and transform our country and make us #1 in this field. This is a very, very competitive field. You see what's going on in China and so many other countries. And we want to remain #1. We want to go to #1 in certain areas where we're not #1. And we're going to give you the competitive advantage that you need. So thank you all very much for being here. On behalf of myself and my great vice president, it's been a meeting that we actually both look very much forward to attending. And maybe if I could, I'm going to ask the group, and for the media, they can stay and see some of the folks, just to your company name and yourself, and maybe a very, very brief remark, because we have a lot of people. And we'll start maybe from my left. Diane?
Good morning. Mr. President, can you hear me? Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, Secretary Ross, Ivanka, Jared, everyone here, Diane Gibbons from Trumbull and Mand. We fly drones in challenging austere environments in the energy sector, primarily for oil and gas and environmental initiatives. Today I was part of the Unmanned Aircraft Systems talk, and I'm very much a proponent of supporting STEM, women, and veterans towards innovation and job creation.
Thank you, Diane.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. President, for the privilege to be here, and Vice President, all the distinguished members of the Cabinet. I represent Honeywell, and we play in many different segments, including aerospace, automobiles, homes, buildings, oil and gas, and it's a pleasure to be here to talk about a very important opportunity for U.S. competitiveness, that being IoT. Thank you.
By the way, Honeywell, great company. That is a great company. And so is yours, by the way.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Aman Verji. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of 500 startups. We've invested in over 1,800 companies, making us the most active venture capital firm in the world. We're a venture capital firm and accelerator headquartered in Silicon Valley with about 150 employees all over the world now.
Jennifer Teagan. I'm with Cayuga Venture Fund, which is a micro VC in upstate New York. I work in underserved capital regions of the United States that need desperately more capital to support the entrepreneurs and the innovative ideas that are coming out of places that are outside of New York City, Silicon Valley, and Boston. And we really appreciate the opportunity, or I really appreciate the opportunity to have my voice heard here today to talk about those things. And just want to encourage the administration that anything that you do for venture capital will pay off huge dividends, because we are the net new job creators in this country and have been for more than 3 decades.
Good.
All net new job growth created in the United States is because of investment by venture capital funds.
Good, thank you, and great job you've done.
Good morning, Mr. President and Mr. Vice President. My name is George Matthew. I'm CEO of Kespri. Kespri is an industrial drone manufacturer, drones made in the United States. Looking forward to spending some time with you showing an example of how industrial work is more easily accomplished with the use of a drone, and it's really changing how the innovative aspect of construction, engineering, and the industrial markets continue to evolve.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. President and Mr. Vice President, members of your staff. John Stratton from Verizon, and just very well-timed session here today. We are at the dawn of an age of a technological revolution, as you said, that will change the world. And with your focus on U.S. job creation and U.S. leadership in these industries, we think this is a great time for public-private partnership in this space.
And John, how are you getting along with AT&T over here?
We do okay.
Getting along pretty good.
Fierce.
What do you think, Randall? I don't know. Great. Thank you very much. Thanks, John.
Hello, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Nick F. Stratus. I'm with Epic Ventures, a Salt Lake City-based venture capital firm. We're known for companies like Ancestry.com. If you've got your DNA tested, you probably worked with Ancestry.com, and for Instructure, which is a learning management system software developer. They make the Canvas learning management software. These are companies that have come out of places like Salt Lake City, and we invest in underserved startup ecosystems throughout the United States, including places like Albuquerque, Boise, Phoenix, Portland, and that's what we're here to represent. Thank you.
That's great, thank you.
Good morning. I'm Tim Junio. I'm the CEO of Cadium. We index everything connected to the public internet, Silicon Valley tech company. So we're doing kind of what Google does for web pages for the Internet of Things. So never better time to start a company in America. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, great to be here. I think the subject of the industrial internet is a great topic. It's what brings companies like Tim's and big companies like GE together, big technology and 5G that Randall has, so great discussion. On a slightly different topic, we closed the locomotive deal in Egypt last weekend. Thanks to you and your team for your help.
I think we helped.
There.
I think we helped.
A big export, $600 million of export from the U.S., so thanks for that as well.
You had some competition from other countries,
Germany.
And I do think, yeah, Germany, isn't that nice? We did a good job. Yeah, it's very good. What was the number we're talking about?
$600 million.
600 million, okay, that's great. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. President. I'm a general partner with Moore David Out Ventures. We're an early stage venture capital firm, and we look forward to playing our role in helping drive jobs in the United States, specifically through IoT and new industrial technologies.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President. I'm Barry Eggers, founding partner with Lightspeed Venture Partners. We're a large and very active early-stage venture capital firm, and we have invested in over 1,000 entrepreneurs and created tens of thousands of jobs for Americans.
Very large. Right, Wilbur? Very large. He is very large. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
I'm Steve Case, entrepreneur, started America Online a few miles from here 32 years ago when only 3% of people were online. They're only online 1 hour a week, so we've come a lot of progress. And then about a decade ago, after that merger you referenced, I moved on and started a venture capital fund, Revolution, a few blocks from here, but I actually spent most of my time on the road. We call it the Rise of the Rest, celebrating regions and trying to get more capital flowing to more entrepreneurs in more places. We looked at the data, and all the states you want, over 30 states, if you added all of them up, last year they only got 15% of venture capital. So when people feel like they've been left out and left behind, they have been left out and left behind. We need to get more investors focusing on the entrepreneurs in Ohio and Pennsylvania. It's great you're in Iowa,
That's right.
Indiana, other places, to make sure we level the playing field so everybody everywhere really does have a shot at the American dream and feels part of the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And you know, Steve really was early, I will tell you. He was right at the beginning. So congratulations. Yes.
That's pretty cool, guys, to see one of the guys from the original AOL tech world. This is an event, guys, you're watching playback from. It just happened moments ago. Raw video here, not edited, but tech leaders, emerging technology leaders, we're going to be broken up into different working groups here to discuss things like drones, 5G wireless broadband, and other related topics. And you can see now they're introducing themselves, who they are, maybe what venture capitalist firm they work for, or what tech company they represent to the president. So kind of interesting stuff here, who he's hosting. And Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump are also there in this room to talk about tech policy, really. So also, guys, I don't know what's going on the Senate floor, but it's looking pretty intense here. Check it out. Some charts and graphics. We're going to go over there in just a second, but flash you back here to inside the White House for now. We'll wrap this up and then go back to the Senate floor. So stay with us. Let me know where you're watching from, guys, and what you think.
30 released. I don't know if that's true.
She
I've
may
been in a
actually
meeting.
leave this meeting. I think she's going to leave this meeting.
No, this is more important right now.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President. I'm Nelson Griggs. I represent NASDAQ, and we are thrilled to be here today. It's well known 90% of plus jobs are created once companies do go public, so having a robust capital markets, not only for the largest companies in the world, but for small caps is incredibly important to us, and it was great to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, Mr. President, I'm Glenn Post. I'm CEO of CenturyLink, and we are one of the largest enterprise networking companies in the nation. We are focused on improving the lives of people and improving companies by connecting them really to the power of the digital world in this nation and really globally. I would just want to express my appreciation for your efforts to create an environment in which we can see that's favorable to economic growth, less regulation, potential of lower taxes. Your efforts are clearly seen, and I appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much. We just had come out a poll on enthusiasm. It's the greatest enthusiasm in the history of this poll, which I think is 28 years old. Business enthusiasm in terms of manufacturers and general business. So I appreciate you saying that. And we're doing well. Stock markets hit new records. Never like to talk about that too much because you don't know what's going to happen as you leave. But we have hit new records and created almost $4 trillion in value. That's a lot since Election Day. So that's quite a statement. Let's keep it going that way, right? But I appreciate it. You've done a great job, by the way. Yes, sir.
Mr. President, Mike Sievert from T-Mobile. Thank you for including us. This meeting comes at an important time because we're on the precipice of moving to 5G and bringing about the Internet of Things. And the position that the government takes is going to determine whether or not America continues to lead in technology at this time of transition. So the meeting comes at an important time, and thank you for the administration's open-mindedness to the regulatory environment that allow investment to flow at historic levels.
And say hello to my very good friend.
Absolutely.
You know that. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, many of my fellow colleagues and friends around the table. My name is Michael Chasen. I am the president of Precision Hawk. We are a drone company as well. We provide advanced drone technology and sensors to many farmers in the agriculture space, like those in Iowa that you recently just visited, as well as other industries, including construction, energy, insurance. And it is an incredible booming industry. There's a number of drone companies sitting around the table. But the one thing that I do want to raise is this is actually the one industry where we actually need a little bit more regulation, because the default is actually limiting what drone technology can do, and we need the FAA and the other regulatory bodies have a little bit more power to regulate opening up those opportunities so we can stay competitive with other countries. Okay. So it's one of the few areas we'd like to see a little more regulation to actually open up opportunity. Okay. Prior to Precision Hawk, I was the co-founder and CEO of Blackboard, a large education company. So also something I'm incredibly passionate about. And actually, several investors in my previous ventures are also here around the table. I think you've assembled an incredible group of people. And I really hope that the voices are heard, because I do believe that excitement today is more than it's been in quite some time about the economic opportunity here in America. And I want to see that momentum continue. So congratulations on the great job you've been doing, and let's continue to move things forward.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President. My name is Brandon DeClette. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Measure. We're one of the largest operators of commercial drones for the Fortune 500 here in the United States. We're committed to job growth, hiring more pilots here in the States, hiring vets. We also want to thank you for gathering drone experts so early in your administration and bringing together a great group of people to discuss how we make the regulations more flexible, make it easier for us to fly for companies like Sprint and inspect their cell towers and remove the dangers of potentially climbing those towers. So again, thank you for allowing us to have a voice.
Thank you.
Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, I represent SoftBank and I also represent Sprint. As you know, we have just created the world's largest venture capital fund, or $100 billion fund. Massa sends his regards. He told me to tell you that he stands 100% committed to the investment that we committed of $50 billion and create 50,000 jobs in the US. From a Sprint perspective, we're leading with a very iconic turnaround of Sprint, and we have some good ideas in terms of how the government can help us expedite the deployment of 5G and the Internet of Things. Thank you for having me here.
He, right after the election, came up to my office. He said, because you won, I am going to invest $50 billion. I said, is that all? Can't you do more? And he actually has done more, which is interesting, but he's great. Say hello to him.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. President, Vice President. My name is Jazz Banga. I'm with a company called Airspace Systems out of San Francisco. Our mission is to protect those who cannot protect themselves. We protect everything from baseball stadiums to amusement parks from rogue drones. Very much appreciate being part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, can you hear me? Yeah, I'm Peter Barris. I'm chairman of NEA, and that's not the National Endowment for the Arts, that's New Enterprise Associates. We're a large, diversified venture firm based here in Washington and in Silicon Valley, but we invest across the US and in other parts of the world like China and India and Israel. I thought we were the largest until the 100 billion came along, but we've invested about our 20 billion in assets, a third in healthcare and 2/3 in the technology space. And I really appreciate having this session today. And I thought we had a very constructive discussion today about ways to affect policy to support emerging technologies.
Good. Thank you very much.
Hi, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President. I likewise thank you for putting this together. We had a very good conversation this morning about the timeliness of this particular meeting, because we're at a place where our industry has literally leapfrogged the world in terms of mobility broadband, mobile broadband, and we're leading the world, and as a result, Silicon Valley is leading the world and developing on top of this. And as we now move into a world of 5G, we're at a place where if we get this right, we probably lead the world for another era of mobile broadband deployment. And the people around this table in the telecom industry have invested more in the United States of America than any other industry since 2007. And getting this right just continues that kind of investment. In fact, this industry invested through the financial crisis, the downturn, invested right through that cycle, and we came out the back end leading the world in mobile broadband technology. So it's an exciting time, and we're very appreciative of you putting this together.
Well, I just have to say about Randall, though, the job you've done at AT&T, because it's like two companies you started, then it was made very different by government, and now here you are again. Really a top job, and I want to congratulate you. That's not easy to do. Most companies would have just disappeared. You didn't disappear, did you?
No.
Congratulations. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, Mr. President, we do have a couple demonstrations for you.
Oh, okay. Would you like to stay and watch, Peter? Would you like to watch a
we
demonstration?
So,
come on.
Randall,
Good.
are you first? Or?
I think I'm second.
You're second. Oh, you're for George. You're first. Okay.
So hopefully, guys, we'll get some of these demonstrations on camera. I don't know quite yet because this was just happened earlier this morning. But pretty cool stuff if you're interested in drones. Obviously, 5G. This is super cool stuff to think about, to talk about. So the techies out there, if you guys like this, let me know. And Terrence, I see your comment. Thanks for watching. Let's see what they're going to do here. Drone demonstrations? I don't know.
This is manufactured in the U.S. in Menlo Park. This is a 3D arm. This is a carbon fiber arm, 3D printed.
So very strong.
Yes, you can hold it actually. Yeah, so there you go. So here you see this is precision GPS incorporated directly into the drone. We have a downward visual sensor, a one-dimensional forward-facing LiDAR, 900 megahertz radio, which we're using LTE networks to directly communicate back into our cloud infrastructure. And so what we wanted to show you was a little bit more about the use of the Kesbury drone for industrial work. And first and foremost, I want to introduce you to John Davenport, who's actually doing a lot of work in the construction space.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, John.
My name is John Davenport. I work at Madison Materials and Whitaker Contracting. In order to keep an accurate inventory of the materials we're producing here at the quarry, we have to go out and field and survey. Since implementing the drone, what used to take 2 weeks of data collection and a lot of action to get over the physical effects, I can typically get the data collected on 3 quarries in 2 days. Safety is paramount. You don't just get hurt in this environment. You get dead. You're trying to climb down the hill, and it's very significant. I can't tell you how many times over the past 10 years I'm falling and slid, and the rocks move out from my feet while I'm surveying the pile. And it's a blessing to fly over the top of them. I really enjoy that. I can come out and fly in there in a minute, upload that data. I can go quickly. How big is this area? How much volume is in this area? You go, just a volume. I mean, in a second, it can be 50 acres. It can be a huge area. The drone is more accurate than I am, simply because it's getting more points in a word out of this drive as efficiency.
So this fully autonomous drone works on behalf of John and the team at Whitaker Construction. So John, if you want to say a little bit more to the president about how you've seen that experience been.
We have to go out in the field and survey them. 25 years ago, we didn't even know what a cell phone was. 2 weeks of data collection. And we look today and we can actually, just our life is kind of evolved around the technology. It's life-changing. This drone is life-changing. We're finding out daily, not in the quarry side of things, but in the construction side of things, and other uses. We've actually started 2 other businesses up off the same drone, just using it in a different way. So that's.
And yet, right now, drones are becoming very powerful too. I see where they're lifting people. I don't know about the level of safety there, but I see that. But also, I guess they're going to be lifting very heavy material at some point.
Yeah, there's an initiative with other companies underway to effectively have delivery being done by a drone. This drone in particular is about just being able to collect aerial intelligence in a seamless way and being able to deliver that to the user in a way that they weren't able to accomplish before. So John's able to get that work done in literally minutes after the drone flies versus usually it would take him days of just manual labor to be able to accomplish that same work.
Fantastic job, John.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure.
Randall?
Yes, Mr. President, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about 5G technology in about 2 minutes, okay? Guys like Jeff Immelt, Darius, Internet of Things, drones, autonomous cars are going to require a whole different level of speed and wireless networks. If you come over here, this is a residential neighborhood. If you want to get the kind of speeds required today, these lights are fiber. We have to take fiber to every one of these houses to get that kind of bandwidth. What 5G does, says forget about all that fiber out here. Get fiber to this small cell, which Marcelo is going to show you here. This small cell will broadcast this kind of bandwidth to all these homes, okay? You no longer need to run fiber in here. So you can have speeds that are multiples of what the fastest cable technology can deliver today into the home with wireless technology. If you move into the city, what's happening? If you want to get that bandwidth in there, the same thing. Fiber run to every one of these buildings. It takes a long time digging up roads, bridges, and sidewalks and so forth. 5G says no longer. In fact, all you need are small cells inside the city, and we can light up these buildings here as well, right? And then as you move to Wi-Fi, we have Wi-Fi deployed in these buildings all over the place, so customers moving in and out of a Wi-Fi arrangement. You can see the old big cell technology sitting on top of buildings, broadcasting throughout the city. But down on the street level, the customer is being put on whatever network gives them the fastest speeds. This could be an autonomous car, it could be any number of things. And so as the car moves, it gets moved back and forth between the networks into another 5G deployment, and you're getting these kind of multiple gigabit speeds throughout cities without all the fiber having to be deployed into all these buildings. Really accelerates it, makes us get to the market much faster.
So 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you couldn't have even imagined
Wouldn't have
this.
thought about it. No, sir, we would not have. And this is 2018, we'll deploy in this kind of configuration, the companies in here are, and in 2020, it becomes mobile. And so this handset would be getting these speeds.
So there has to be a tremendous construction saving too, ultimately.
It's a huge construction saving. You don't have to deploy all this fiber. And you see this little cell site here. You're going from deploying these big cell sites and towers to deploying these all over cities. That's what Marcelo is going to show you, what this technology looks like now.
So, Mr. President, if I can summarize 5G, is $275 billion of investment in the next 7 years, the creation of 3 million new jobs, and a contribution of $500 billion to the GDP of the United States. What is different between 4G and 5G? 4G, those were enormous towers that look quite ugly. We're going to move to deploy millions of this, hundreds of thousands, and then millions of small cells all over the United States. The problem that we have is it takes us 1 year to get a city to give us a permit, but it takes us 1 hour to install them. And unless we can install them real fast, we're going to lose that leadership that we have today. Those huge towers, all it is now is just a small cell. You put this on the utility poles, you put it in the cable strands, and that's all we need in order to enable. So when people ask about 5G,
But they're mostly local permits you need?
Basically, we run into trouble with cities, municipalities, counties. Each one has its own idea of how much they should charge, how long should it take.
How much is a federal permit? How long does that take you?
Well, this mainly we go down to the cities. we're working quite well with the FCC.
Individual problems with certain cities.
There's some cities that takes 30 days, there's some cities that takes 2 years, so it's impossible to deploy. So this is why we need to fix this. And that's what 5G, when everybody talks about 5G.
Well, we can do a recommendation to the cities all over the country to get it going, and Gary, maybe they can move it faster, because this is truly a great process. But why don't we do a very strong letter of recommendation so they can get it done much faster? And we're doing that all over the country. You know what we're.
Shot clocks. The FCC at one time put in place to deploy these kind of cell sites.
Yeah.
Shot clocks. You have 180 days to get a permit done, or say no permit. Something similar is going to need to be done.
Well, we're doing that with highways. It would take sometimes 15 to 20 years to get permits to build a small road or a highway. And we are going to bring it down, trying to bring it down to 1 year, maximum 1 year. And you have the same thing. This is much easier.
So
this is really much easier, believe me.
The US is a leader in 4G. We launched 3G. And every country, China, Europe, is basically streamlining the process to get there faster.
So this will be going into many other countries? Yes. By other companies, by you, by whom?
No, we only operate in the US, and our goal is to basically, we want the US to lead 5G because of the speed, because of the job creation.
You will if you can get your permits.
Absolutely.
China has much less trouble getting permits. Okay?
The central government. Thank you, Mr. President. Great to see you.
Thank you so much. Great job. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you. Great. Amazing stuff. No simpler world needs simpler day.
Pretty cool stuff, guys. That was pool feed for us of President Trump gathering with 25 different CEOs from tech companies, venture capital firms as well, and interesting stuff. And I have a feeling, Terrence, you know more about tech than I do, but because you seem to be really interested in it. So let me know what you thought about that. But I think that stuff is super cool. It's a little bit over my head at times, but those are some of the smartest people I think ever in the world. So.
Yeah, and especially kind of on the innovation front, obviously. So lots of new kind of interesting stuff coming out of there.
Yeah, it was kind of cool to see President Trump go through some of those demonstrations as well with them. But we're getting some word of some other stuff. Obviously, healthcare is a big talker today. This feed just switched. Looks like we're going to a press conference to talk about the GOP healthcare version of their bill. The Senate version, which came down today after Mitch McConnell drafted that along with 13 other Republicans, is getting a lot of talk today on the floor. And actually right now we got live picture of the Senate floor. There it is. They are talking, before they had some charts out, some graphics. They were like teaching it up there with the graphics about Trumpcare is what they're calling it. So it might be interesting to kind of hear what some of them have to say, and then we'll shoot you guys over to this when it starts up as well to hear more about the healthcare plan and some of the stuff that's coming out of Capitol Hill based on that today. But let's go over to the Senate floor and listen in.
That's in the Republican bill means that younger, healthier people will choose not to have health insurance. Now, if they happen to ride a motorcycle and wrap themselves around a tree and get flown to shock trauma in Baltimore, we're going to treat them. Guess who's going to pay the bill? All of us are going to pay the bill through uncompensated care. It's going to raise my insurance policies and everybody's insurance policy. That person should have had insurance, but that person thought he or she didn't need that insurance. So they didn't take out the policy. And you find that those who will take out the insurance policies are the higher risks because they know they need the insurance. So those with high-risk issues will be in the pool raising the cost. And that's why CareFirst has a higher ask, because they know that there's less likely that healthier people will be in the pool than projected under the original Affordable Care Act. Why? Because of President Trump. So when the leader says that the Affordable Care Act is falling apart, the Affordable Care Act is strong. but it's been made vulnerable by actions of the Trump administration, and provisions in this bill will even make it weaker. 1.2 million Marylanders are in our state medical assistance Medicaid program. Now, Madam President, many of these people are working families. Many of these people are seniors who need long-term care and are in the Medicaid program because it pays for their long-term care expenses. Many of these people are veterans, are returning warriors who are under the Medicaid program. Under the Republican-released bill, they may make it a gentler slope before we get to the full impact of the Medicaid reductions. But the Medicaid reductions, if I understand correctly, are even more severe than under the House-passed bill. Now, I can speak for Maryland. I know our legislature. Our legislature is going to try to do what's right. But they have limited resources in order to try to meet the needs that are out there. It's just not right to say that we're passing these problems on to the states when the states don't have the fiscal capacity to deal with it. Who gets hurt? The 1.2 million Marylanders who rely upon the Medicaid program, and all Marylanders who don't want to see what we call cost shifting. When someone who doesn't have health insurance ends up in our emergency room, doesn't pay the bill, and everyone else pays those bills. So why are we doing this? What is the reason why we've gone through this pain? And I've heard my colleagues talk about it, and it's absolutely true. The Republicans need to make room for the tax cut. They're pretty clear about it. Close to $1 trillion in tax cuts. That's what they need to do. Who benefits from the tax cuts? The wealthy. Those who have access to health care. And who pays for the tax cuts? Those who are the most vulnerable in our community.
Rental car agencies, to everybody who was involved to get us back to normal operations. So we're very happy in that regard. Status on Officer Nevola is he's doing well, and he's recuperating and in the local hospital, and look forward to his release whenever that might be. I do not know when that will be. At that point, any questions?
Yes.
Sir.
Are there any changes that are going to take place here at the airport involving security as a result of what happened yesterday?
The answer to that is we've got some enhanced security measures in place right now to have additional resources. You can see them around the facility to help just make sure that we've got everything as our officers and our staff are going through the grieving process and recuperating in that sense. So we have some, but those are, I'll say, normal ramped up protocols as part of our airport security program.
Any indication that the fleet was here before yesterday?
I do not have any information related to that at my level. That would be an FBI question.
That meeting that Nevola was preparing for, was that a briefing following the fact that was left here previously?
So yes, thank you, Dominic. The question was about referring to a debriefing. 2 weeks ago, we had an incident at the airport with an unattended bag that we were not able to resolve immediately. We evacuated the terminal, did our normal security protocols at that point. As part of that is normal debriefing. We had a staff debriefing the day after, and we were doing an agency-wide with our local and state law enforcement agencies and our partners in that regard. That was scheduled for 10 o'clock yesterday, and this incident happened at 9:45. So in some ways, the good Lord was looking over all of us because we had a lot of resources that were on site and already on the way to the airport to attend that meeting, which was just down the hall from where the attack took place.
Is there any consideration of moving any of the security checkpoints?
At this point, we have not had any discussions about any checkpoint security changes.
Can you tell us a little bit? Can you tell us a little bit about the individual's car, where it was found, and what was found inside?
I can't tell you anything about that because I don't know about the car. I know it was in our parking lot. That's all I know.
What type of car?
I don't know. I do not know that.
Can you tell us anything about the bag that was found?
I know one was one was red, and they were shown in the bathroom. They were just found in the bathroom. I did not privy to that information.
I know this is a small airport in back office as well.
Mm-hmm.
Getting back 24 hours later. Can you talk about the impact of the staff and yourself and not have to shake back and
Sure. When an incident happens, and I would say we're no different than any other airport, park, city, or anything like that, it strikes at our core in the sense that we are friends. We know a lot of the people here, whether or not they're airport employees or airline or TSA employees, so it hits home. My priority and our priority yesterday was to make sure that the safety and security of the facility was to get back and try to resume normal operations, and making sure that Officer Nevola was taken care of. Immediately after that, it's how is the rest of staff doing? And so we've offered up and we've shared information with our staff and also other stakeholders on our airport about how to get critical incident stress management, because that's important, an important part of the grieving process and returning to normal.
What is it folks who will get a little worried about flying?
I would say that you are in safe hands. I'm proud of the aviation security system that we have in America, and I'm proud of the people who take that work here at Bishop Airport. I think get on that plane and fly because you're just like normal. You're going to be safe.
You said that Officer Nevola was there. That tradition was for that debrief meeting. If that debrief meeting had not been happening, would there not have been a police officer there?
It was just coincidence that he was there. From what I understand, he wasn't there to get ready for the briefing. He just happened to be there, and that's really all I know. Maybe I haven't really talked to him about that specifically. Maybe he was going into the meeting or something like that, but he would have been a part of that meeting for sure. But was he on his way to the meeting or to and from? I don't know at that point.
Prior to this incident,
had he not been there, what a blessing it is that he's there.
Is that a question or a statement?
No. I give you a reaction to that.
Well, of course, it's a blessing that we were able to restrain the individual quickly. I'm not saying that it's a blessing that he was there, because quite honestly, I wish that this whole thing didn't unfold.
Prior to the incident, what is safety protocol? How many officers were they stationed?
Well, certainly we have officers who are around the terminal at all times of day. Where they're stationed and what that's part of our security program, and that's for our information.
What can you share with us about Officer Nevola? Can you tell us a little about him?
He's been an employee here since 2001, became a lieutenant in 2006, I believe. Somebody shake their head if they disagree. It was 2006. What I can tell you is he's a great guy. He's well loved by everybody here, just for his personality, his professionalism. He treats everybody with respect, and that's not everybody that's employee. That's passengers and the public. Anything else? Yes. Oh, anything for Dan?
Yes, go ahead.
Is it a concern security-wise that, in essence, anybody can bring anything into this airport, whether it be a knife, gun, or anything?
Yes.
We're always concerned about airport security, and that's at any airport in the country. And our primary concern is to make sure that passengers can get on and off the airplane. These kinds of incidents that happen in public areas are scary no matter where they happen, whether it's an airport or the mall or local city hall. It's a fine balance about what security versus what having the freedom that we enjoy. So that's our thought on it. Is we've got to maintain that balance, and what's right or wrong really is just in response to whatever the situation may be.
How long was Lieutenant Nevola on his own, essentially, after he sat before another officer
officer jumped in to help?
Matter of seconds. I don't know exactly how long. I mean, I know how quickly, we got there. Dan can answer that really quick because he was there.
We were right outside of the location where the event happened, getting ready for our meeting. One of our other employees were visiting, having conversation with Lieutenant Nevola. He jumped in and helped, and then myself and Public Safety Director Chief Miller arrived on the scene within 4 or 5 seconds. We were only 15 feet away.
Did you hear commotion? What let you know it was happening?
Yes, we heard the commotion right outside of the meeting. Is a glass. We heard it, saw it, and then responded appropriately. We heard some screaming and some wrestling right outside of the meeting area.
What specifically was your role?
I was preparing for the debriefing on the event we had 2 weeks ago. So I was in the meeting preparing for that, an emergency response from the airport end of it.
And so when you saw what happened, what did you do? What part of this?
I just helped restrain the individual at that time.
What did you hear?
I just heard some commotion. That's about it.
Where did you hear him say anything?
No, I did not.
As you were restraining him, he wasn't yelling still.
No, he was not.
The mayor said in the news conference yesterday that there was an unsung hero in all this. Can you explain?
Well, that was most likely, not speaking for her, but I'm assuming it was one of our maintenance employees, one of our employees here that was talking with Lieutenant Nevola at the time.
Can you describe what he did?
He helped restrain the individual. He's not here in this room now.
Can you talk about how you restrained him? In other words, how many people it took? What specifically happened physically?
I cannot talk about that right now.
What was kind of going through your head then? I guess if you can't talk about that.
What was going through my head, seeing a colleague, a good friend of mine, being attacked and stopping it as quick as I possibly could. Mm-hmm.
Did you offer first aid?
Immediately, yes, with some of the other airport staff, and then I got called on my radio for the EMTs and paramedics to respond from the firehouse, which were here within 90 seconds.
All right, guys, that was a brief update on the situation in Flint, Michigan, when an officer was stabbed the other day. We're losing that feed right here, so I'm going to bring it back in really quickly to the newsroom where we're eating cupcakes. Hope you guys don't mind, Cam.
I don't know where my mic is.
Oh, your mic. He has a red velvet. All right, it's someone's birthday in the newsroom, 21st birthday. Not Cam's, but.
Not mine, but one of the other interns, actually. Intern Amber. Has she been on the show?
Amber did help me out one day or two, and she was in here. It was weeks ago. She likes coming in here, too, so maybe we'll see her again. But, yeah, she's 21 today.
Yep, she's 21, and the best part about it is we had cupcakes.
So we're enjoying those.
Thanks, Amber.
Yay! She's 21. All right, so, guys, again, that was an update about the officer who was stabbed. Apparently, it was a 12-inch blade and an 8-inch serrated portion on that blade. The FBI is investigating that as an act of terrorism, so you were just hearing the account from an officer there, a security police member who was there on site. Now, this all did occur outside of the TSA security area of the airport. Yeah, pretty scary situation. We were following that as it broke live the other day. So we're getting our feedback, and we're going back up here to Washington, D.C. Chuck Schumer talking about the health care bill one more time. Let's listen in there, and then we'll bring it back up here.
Americans pay even a bigger percentage of their income for their premiums, they're going to send costs soaring. Second, the bill will kick millions off Medicaid by making even deeper cuts than the House bill. If you're a middle-class family with a loved one in a nursing home, the cost of that care is going to go up. Third, it abandons people with pre-existing conditions, putting at dire risk maternity care, mental health coverage, by allowing states even more latitude to get out of covering essential health benefits. Fourth, it defunds Planned Parenthood, making it harder for millions of women to obtain the health care they need and deserve. Now, why are they doing all this? To provide a giant tax break for the wealthiest Americans. Simply put, the bill will result in higher costs, less care. Millions of Americans will lose their health insurance, particularly through Medicaid. It's every bit as bad as the House bill, in some ways even worse. The president has said that the Senate bill needed heart. The way this bill cuts health care is heartless. The president said the House bill was mean. The Senate bill may be meaner. The Senate Republican health care bill is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Only this wolf's teeth are even sharper than in the House bill. Somewhere in America, Mr. President, there's a family who takes a trip each Friday to visit grandma or grandpa at a nursing home, who sacrificed all of their savings to pay for their health care until they had no more savings, and now they rely on Medicaid to help pay the cost of long-term care in the nursing home. Somewhere in America, President Trump, there's a father who is eaten up inside, watching his son struggle with opioid addiction, who knows in his heart that his son would be able to go on and live a healthy and fulfilling life if he could only afford treatment to get him out from under the devastating addiction. Somewhere in America, there's a parent whose child has cancer, a mother and father who stay up late at night worried that their insurance will not be available or run out before their family needs it most. In that America that my Republican friends envision with this health care bill, those Americans and many more beside might not get the coverage they need. We live in the wealthiest country on earth. We're proud of it, as we should be. But surely we can do better than what the Republican health care bill promises. Every American should be asking their Republican senators one simple question this weekend. Why do the wealthy deserve a tax cut more than we deserve health care? Senator Murray.
Senator Schumer, thank you. Senator Wyden. Today it has really become abundantly clear exactly why Senate Republicans have been hiding this Trumpcare plan from patients and families, from Democrats, and even from many Republicans, because based on what we are now learning, their Trumpcare plan is every bit as bad as what the House passed. It is mean, to quote President Trump, meaner, it is heartless, and it is an enormous broken promise to people across the country. They're ashamed of their plan, I believe, and rightly so. After 7 years of refusing to work with us as Democrats on actually helping families get better health care, of obstructing progress, playing partisan political games, even when it hurt their own constituents, what Republican leaders have put forth is truly shameful, and it needs to be stopped. And I have to say, it speaks volumes that only today, with just days to go before they plan to vote on their Trumpcare bill, did Republican leaders think it might be a good idea to release their plan, which would impact the health and well-being of people nationwide and nearly a sixth of our economy, just today. Now, of course, Senate Republican leaders have done everything possible to prevent people from seeing their version of Trumpcare. It has been truly unprecedented. There have been no hearings, no scrutiny, no public input, and it's clear why. Because they did promise to lower healthcare costs, and this plan will actually raise them, especially for seniors and those with pre-existing conditions. They promised not to pull the rug out from under patients. This plan will take away coverage. They said that under their bill, no one would be worse off. Well, tell that to a woman who is going to have to pay as much as $1,000 extra for maternity care, or will have to see her Planned Parenthood center shuttered. They said their bill would protect patients with pre-existing conditions. Read the fine print of this bill. This plan is a backdoor way to put those patients' fate in the hands of insurance companies. The Senate Republican Trumpcare plan is every bit as bad as the version patients and families rejected in the House. And let me be very clear, if Republicans jam through this plan, they will own the consequences. Now, I know many Senate Republicans have said they are not happy with this secret process Republican leaders have been conducting. They want more time to review the plan, and they understand what it means for the people they serve. Well, my message to each of them is saying you're unhappy is not enough. Saying you're frustrated is not enough. You have the power to do something about it. So I urge my Republican colleagues, join Democrats, tell Leader McConnell you want more time and you want an open debate. Do the right thing for patients and families like those that have come to the Capitol to make their voices heard all of this week. All those people who've called and emailed and posted on social media who deserve the opportunity to fully scrutinize this plan. We call on those Republicans who just say they're frustrated and this is a bad process. Do the right thing. Tell Leader McConnell to stop. Thank you.
Mr. Leader, thank you. The leader and Senator Murray have said it very well, and I'm just going to make a couple of extra points. In my view, the Senate Republicans are trying to con Americans into thinking that they are fixing problems here, when in fact what they're doing is causing new ones. The reality is they basically double down on everything that the American people rejected the first time around. And what's clear, and we saw it in the discussion on the Senate floor this morning, is that Senate Republicans are going to keep telling Americans they're fixing their health care right up until the second when it gets taken away. Now, the president said this was all about finding heart. That was what he really wanted to see in this effort in the Senate. It doesn't strike me as heart to put at risk not just seniors who depend on nursing homes, but let me lay this out because this is my background. If you have a baby boomer, for example, who has had a stroke or maybe early onset of Alzheimer's, they are going to find it very difficult to afford long-term care. And this bill is going to make it harder for them to get Medicaid. And it's not just seniors, and it's not just baby boomers, but it's kids with special needs, disabled folks. I mean, that's what this country has always stood for, that we would be there for folks who didn't have clout, folks who didn't have big, powerful lobbies on K Street. We are not going to turn our back on them. And I want to close with two last points. One deals with substance and one deals with the matter you heard about on the floor. The Republicans have tried to twist and distort a provision that I wrote in the Affordable Care Act to allow states to offer innovation waivers. And there are very strong consumer protections in this, so that states are given the right to do better under current law. What Republicans are clearly trying to do is to gut those consumer protections that we insisted on and really turn back the clock and strip Americans of their rights. One last point deals with this morning. There were comments made to the effect that somehow Democrats were disinterested in working in a bipartisan way. That's what I've made my focus in my time in public service on, is working in a bipartisan way. And our colleagues very much on the Finance Committee wanted to work in a bipartisan fashion with respect to the Affordable Care Act. We know that there are ways, and the leader has outlined this with respect to the private insurance market, in which we can strengthen it. Not once have I or my colleagues been asked by a single Republican to work on this bill or discuss fixes, bipartisan fixes, to the Affordable Care Act. The statement this morning that Democrats refuse to work with the other side is not just a fiction, it is a gross fiction, You probably get my sense of the drift on that. Thank you, Mr. Leader.
One point I'd add to Senator Wyden, they put reconciliation in on January 4th. They put in the budget. They don't want Republicans, sorry, they put in the budget. They don't want Democrats to work with them on January 4th. So much for bipartisanship.
Senator
Green
Murray,
tie.
Can you mentioned that your concern is that this bill does not protect coverage for pre-existing conditions. Can you talk about that a little more in specificity and why you believe your read of the bill?
My read of the bill is very clear that that people will not have the protections of pre-existing conditions. There are opt-outs in there, so we'll go back to the time when people want to buy insurance and find out that it doesn't cover what they thought it did, and believe me, people don't want to go there, or they will not cover pre-existing conditions. In one way, by not covering them. In another way, by charging them more. So all of a sudden you find out if you want to buy maternity coverage or mental health, you're going to have to pay as much as, $1,000, like I said, for maternity care to get that coverage. That is not what we have today. They're taking away coverage for people.
Senator Schumer, I'd be curious to get Senator Wyden's take on this. One of the provisions in this bill are propping up stability in the market. They put tens of billions of dollars over the next 4 years for states and counties where they say,
it's not
insurers have left. I mean, how do you address that issue? That's their approach, but how would you address that issue where those states or counties don't have?
Yeah, first, they don't need it in the bill. It's current law. They can do that right now. So it's nothing new. But second, you can't destroy the whole foundation and then say you're going to patch a hole in the wall. It's just the whole construct will collapse around people who need health care, and a small amount of salve isn't going to help. It's not close to enough. It's what they're trying to do here. This is a nasty bill, and they're trying to cover it up with little things here and there. So, states won't require, those states that asked for additional Medicaid won't be required to drop out instead of 2020 later. But they start cutting Medicaid immediately. It's, they're trying to disguise. If they had the courage of their convictions, it would be a totally different bill. And they'd say, hey, yeah, we're cutting Medicaid. We don't think the government should be involved. That's what they really believe. But they know the American people don't agree with that, so they come up with these little subterfuges. Yeah.
At this point, Republicans that came out of the meeting saying that states can choose to keep the expansion if they want. They just have to pay more for it. And I wonder what your response is.
Well,
It speaks for itself.
Yeah, the states are going to pay more for it, and we'll have more analysis on this shortly. But overall, the Medicaid cuts are deeper. This whole construct, this whole arrangement is set up to try to give people a sense that they have fixed all this stuff from what went over so badly with the American people. And the reality is that on key issues like Medicaid, and that's why I mentioned the kids and the baby boomers and all of those who are walking on an economic tightrope, overall, the cuts are going to be deeper.
I think people who have coverage, say to help their senior citizen parents in nursing homes, aren't going to say, well, maybe the states will give it to us after the feds cut it off. That's small consolation.
Senator Schumer, on the Medicaid, as long as you and I have been here, which is a long time, both parties have been talking about entitlements reform, and they've never been able to there seems to be a bipartisan desire for it, but they've never been able to do it. Do you think the Medicaid program does need to be changed, and is there a way, should it be done on a health care bill, and is there a way to do it where you're not hurting these vulnerable
they're not trying to change it. They're just trying to cut it. We're always willing to look at reforms to make it more efficient and effective, and we've done that through the years. But this is not reform. Basically, if you talk to some of the people, the most conservative, they don't believe there should be Medicaid at all, and this is a step to eradicating it.
Can I add one sentence to what the leader said? Not only are we open to reforms, but Democrats, if you look at the last few years, have been very supportive of the idea of introducing a bigger role for the private sector in Medicaid. So we have been there, and that was why, listening to all this about how Democrats don't give a whit about working in a bipartisan way is just a fiction. And on your point, we have a history of working with Republicans to bring the private sector into a bigger role in Medicaid.
Last one.
Democrats have talked repeatedly about wanting to improve Obamacare, so why haven't Democrats put forward their own plan?
We have. We will send you a letter. We sent about a month ago, signed by every one of the Democratic senators, saying, work with us. Here are the changes we propose to make ACA better. What do you propose to make it better? We got no answer.
Senator Schumer, before you
That's
go.
it. Nope.
When President Trump just talked about the tapes.
Being in there, Senator Schumer.
Senator Schumer.
He said there's no tape.
He said there's no tape, Senator Schumer. Do you have a response to that?
So guys, if you're just joining us, thanks so much for joining us on our stream here. Lots of healthcare coverage, obviously, today. You were watching some of the Senate Democrats respond to the release of the GOP Senate version of the healthcare bill. Lots of stuff on that today, and Chuck Schumer answering some questions there. The main thing people are talking about is the cutting of certain portions of Medicaid. We saw some protesters earlier. I brought you guys that video outside Mitch McConnell's office. Many of them were disabled or in wheelchairs, and they had to be hand carried outside of the Senate offices there. So that was kind of a crazy video to check out. But yeah, protests earlier today that we got video of. So we're going to continue to follow this stuff throughout the day. We still have some other stuff going on. It's 1 o'clock now on this Thursday. And totally switching gears. Check out this footage right now. This is a live shot of Mobile, Alabama. Look at those rising waters there. Flooding there due to the flooding on the Gulf Coast. And we've been hearing from weather experts and whatnot down there, and also people in New Orleans, the mayor, the governor, talking about the tropical storms. Tropical storm Cindy, of course, is the one that everyone's talking about right now. But those are pretty high. It's pretty crazy, right, Cam?
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously there's been a lot of flooding, but just the waves there you can see at the bottom kind of crashing up against that little wall. I mean, it's absolutely insane. I know that there's still plenty of kind of space there in between the top of the water and those roads, but I would be probably more skeptical, I think, than a lot of these people are. I don't know if I'd really be driving at this point if I lived down there.
Yeah, I agree. It's coming up high. Pretty crazy. We don't get these shots often, so it's kind of cool to see a live shot down there in Alabama. But like I said, the Gulf flooding is the big weather talk this week. And, yeah, we'll have to see how this all comes down, how it all subsides. If you guys are watching, let me know where you're watching from and how you like it. And we're going to try to kind of bring you some varied stuff. Mostly we want to bring you live cameras, raw, unedited video, just kind of where we have a camera, whether it be from our sister Fox stations around the nation or from international sources or even our parent station, Fox News. And right now, one of those is coming down. Just hearing some notes on what's coming in. But speaking of weather, we're going to be hearing from somebody shortly about this. Looks like our feed is about to switch, but there it is. Down in Alabama, they're talking about the weather. Let's listen in.
The flooding and the heavy rains in the state, and we will see every area that has been impacted. So with that, I will turn it over to the governor of the state of Alabama, Governor Kay Ivey. Governor.
Thank you, Director Faulkner, and thank y'all for being here today. Members of the press, if you've never been here today, this staff that's here at the EOC, Emergency Operations Center, is first class, well prepared, and they are totally dedicated to the professional work that they do. So I'm honored to be a part of their team as well. As the director said, last Tuesday morning I issued the declaration of emergency so that agencies and resources could be positioned and staged to get prepared to provide the state of Alabama the greatest protection going forward in case and be prepared for the emergency that was sure to come. Fortunately, Alabama dodged the brunt of the storm. Our neighbors to the west, our friends in Louisiana, did not, and certainly we think about them as they are now trying to come out and participate in the recovery process. But here in Alabama, we have been and are being significantly impacted by effects of Cindy. And the first difficult effect we've had was the loss of life of a 10-year-old. Nolan was his first name. And we regret that so much, and our prayers and our thoughts are certainly with his family in this especially difficult time. Our state continues to be heavily impacted by the floods, rising floods, and the rains that's coming. And I heard this morning a report that more rains are on the way. So the threat of flooding continues, and the number of counties continues to increase going north that have been, EOC offices in those counties have been activated. So this is not just a coastal issue, for goodness sake. This is about inland as well. So everybody needs to have heads up and be alert to the rising water that can affect them in flooding. And also our rivers and our lakes are rising. So wherever there's water, our citizens need to be careful and cautious, and we all need to be weather alert. It's also my understanding that our farmers are being heavily impacted, and in fact, some are reporting significant losses. I'm going to be making some calls today to USDA officials to ask them to include us in their disaster assistance program to help us pay back our farmers. Because you know, the folks that farm for a living and make their livelihood off the land are totally dependent upon the weather and its unpredictability. So we'll be contacting those officials at USDA and asking for some assistance there. In April, as the director mentioned, shortly after becoming governor, I came up here to the EOC with a number of my cabinet officers, and we participated in a lengthy hurricane planning process and orientation. And at the time, I knew I'd be coming back at some point to implement those plans that we had talked about and rehearsed so well that day. So making sure that the state of Alabama is well prepared at the state and local level to be ready to respond to whatever emergency may come will continue to be a very, very high priority for me during the time that I serve as governor. It is important to be prepared, and I am so pleased to work with the fine staff here at EOC and also to work with my cabinet officers. And I thank you very much for being here today. We are prepared.
Thank you, Governor. At this time, we'll have a few remarks from the state meteorologist here for the Alabama Emergency Management Agency, Jim Stuckovich.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Jim.
My pleasure. So what we've had so far is widespread 3 to 6 inch amounts along the coast in extreme South Alabama with isolated 12-inch amounts. An additional 2 to 4 inches of rain is likely today, with isolated amounts approaching 8 inches already over what's already fallen. And as we go farther north, if we get up towards the I-20 corridor, we've had 2 to 4 inches in the last day and a half, and we're expecting another 1 to 3 with possibly 6-inch total. So as the governor mentioned, I want to echo, we're not done with the threat yet. We have flash flood watches, and we have a tornado watch in effect for portions of Alabama. Those watches for both flash flood and tornadoes will likely continue.
Guys, coming back into the newsroom with a little breaking information. You guys have possibly been following President Trump's tweets. He's been called the tweeting president. 2 new ones just came up. I just wanted to bring them to your attention. Just about 10-ish minutes ago now. It's about 12. But talking about the tapes with James Comey. So we've been talking about this forever. We brought you guys that long live stream of the James Comey testimony a couple weeks ago. And now he's tweeting out 2 tweets in succession here. First one says, with all of the recently reported electronic surveillance, intercepts, unmasking, and illegal leaking of information, I have no idea. Next one, whether there are tapes, quotes, or recordings of my conversations with James Comey, but I did not make and do not have any such recordings. So people are going to be analyzing why this is now, like why is he tweeting this now versus right after or like during that testimony. I'm sure a lot of the politicos will be talking about this. Our political reporter may include it in something tonight, so we'll have to see. But I don't know. I feel like these can be overanalyzed sometimes, but he is the tweeting president. So.
Yeah, I mean, we especially love to overanalyze everything that he puts out.
I know.
Mean, it's like
because it's kind of he's unconventional. He's different. These are sometimes comical. People love to analyze them. That's just that's just the nature of the world now and politics. And,
yeah, I mean, definitely politics are chugging right along here in D.C. today with that. The press conference we watched a second ago, and now more tweets. Just another day at the office for a lot of these guys.
Totally true. No, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, so anyway, a little breaking out of Twitter there. We're going to take you back away from Alabama now, back up here in D.C. to the Woodrow Wilson Center. Vice President Pence is slated to speak a little bit on border security here. And he's speaking, it's going to be a conversation with the Wilson Center CEO and President Jane Harman. She was formerly on the Hill in the House of Representatives for like 17 years or something. Now she runs the Wilson Center, which is a center focused on global outreach and security and prosperity. So let's listen in there before he comes to the podium. We have a little intro. So back over now live in D.C. This is the Woodrow Wilson Center, bipartisan center here in D.C.
The Wilson Center, all of which play crucial roles in showcasing and explaining the best of our country to a world craving sure and responsible U.S. leadership. Attending today's event are many who shape the story of the Wilson Center. Ambassador Joe Gildenhorn and his wife Alma. Joe ably chaired the center for 11 years, and they are still our major supporters and beloved friends. Former White House Chief of Staff Mac McLarty, a member of our Global Advisory Board who has extensive expertise in Latin America, the topic of the Vice President's remarks today. President of the Inter-American Development Bank, former Colombian ambassador, co-organizer of the Conference on Peace and Security, and our great friend, Luis Alberto Moreno. Two people unable to join us today, but who were watching from afar, are Fred Malek and retired General Dave Petraeus, who co-chair our Global Advisory Council, an astoundingly wise group which informs our programming and focus. Fred Malek has spent decades offering counsel to business leaders and politicians, especially governors, and former Governor Pence and I value him as a close friend. Finally, also here are some of our brilliant and strictly nonpartisan staff, notably Dr. Cindy Arnson, who has headed our Latin America program for the past 12 years, Dr. Eric Olson, her able deputy, and Dr. Duncan Wood, who brings decades of experience on the ground in Mexico to his role as director of our internationally recognized Mexico Institute. I single these three out because Vice President Pence is here today to discuss commitments made at the Conference on Prosperity and Security. That conference occurred in Miami last week and got much positive attention, certainly here at the center. Though President Trump's visit to Miami the following day to address Cuba policy may have garnered more headlines. But we're not just about headlines here, we're about trend lines, and we think this conference matters, and we are thrilled that it will be discussed this afternoon. The summit was a critically important effort by the administration to send positive signals to our friends and neighbors, including Mexico, and Mexico co-chaired the summit. In attendance at the summit were the presidents of Honduras and Guatemala and the vice president of El Salvador, the three key countries in the so-called Northern Triangle. All those countries, as the summit discussed.
Guys, right now I'm getting word that we're about to see a news presser outside the U.S. Capitol. from Democrats. Again, more talk on healthcare, more protests pretty much against the GOP Senate version of this healthcare bill. And it looks like we have some doctors, lots of people in lab coats here. So this could be interesting. Coming at you guys live. Let's jump it back over there because we'll have this one on for a little bit. And the vice president isn't even out yet. So we're just going to keep jumping around with what we get in. But looks like another gathering. Here it is outside the Capitol. Let's listen in.
Exactly.
In your early career, when I lived in California,
We're going to go ahead and get started here. Yeah, this is a well-worn. Good afternoon, folks. Thank you for being here for this very important topic and issue that will be so consequential to so many millions of everyday Americans in our nation. Standing with me today are more than 75 physicians. You got emergency medicine docs. You have surgeons. You have OBGYNs. You have primary care physicians. You have many specialties and primary care doctors and nurses and providers standing here with us, and medical students and future physician leaders standing here, because we are here to highlight the devastating impact that Trumpcare would have on our patients. And if there's anybody who can tell you in the most intimate manner how this bill will affect people, it is the nurses and the doctors who stay awake hour after hour, who lose sleep thinking about our patients every single day that we care for them. I am glad to have the esteemed members of House leadership here to help amplify this important message. Thank you to Leader Pelosi and to Whip Hoyer. And thank you to my fellow doctor and representative, Ami Bera, for being here as well. Not too long ago, one of my colleagues in the House, a Republican, said, quote, "Nobody dies because they don't have access to health care," unquote. All of us standing up here know firsthand that that statement is false. All of us have seen people die because they didn't have access to health care. When people can't afford primary or preventative care that could catch treatable cancers early, or can't afford their medications for serious chronic illnesses like diabetes or congestive heart failure, they die. Let me tell you about a patient that I cared for, a 55-year-old uninsured woman who came into my emergency room with vaginal bleeding. We stopped the bleeding in the emergency department. We stabilized her. We diagnosed her, unfortunately, with advanced cervical cancer. She didn't have the health insurance and she didn't have access to care, so she never had her regular pap smears and routine visits to the primary care doctor that could have detected the cancer early and that could have saved her life. 6 months later, despite the doctor's efforts and chemotherapy, her cancer was just too advanced and she died. So make no mistake, Trumpcare means millions more will be uninsured without access to care, causing thousands to die. That's not a political claim. It's a medical fact. We know because all of us here can be witnesses and say that we have seen it. Trumpcare isn't quote unquote mean. It's cruel and deadly. Every patient I see in the emergency department asks me two questions. One, hey doc, am I going to be okay? And two, am I going to be able to afford this? The answer to the second question always comes back to one fundamental thing: healthcare coverage that saves lives. And that's what's at stake in this debate. The millions of people who are at risk of losing their health insurance and essential health coverage. As providers, we take an oath to first do no harm. So I urge my colleagues in Congress to take that same oath. Do no harm. Instead of ripping health coverage from millions of Americans, and doing real harm, let's work together Let's work together to continue improving health care for everyone. So now I would like to turn the time over to Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you very much, Representative Ruiz. It's an honor to be here with you and Congressman Dr. Ami Bera. Congress is truly blessed by their service in the Congress because they can bring firsthand knowledge, the ramifications of changes in public policy and how they affect the well-being of the American people. It's an honor to join you, our distinguished witness, Mr. Hoyer, Mr. Mike Thompson on the Ways and Means Committee, a committee of jurisdiction, Congresswoman Louise Slaughter, our top Democrat on the Rules Committee, which had an important role in passing the Affordable Care Act. What an honor it is for all of us to be with all of you, the most trusted people in America, the docs and healthcare providers, and nurses, and nurses, The nurses have come to us and said most of the people that we see have a pre-existing medical condition. So when we talk about legislation, their bill is terrible, as Congressman Dr. Ruiz has said. It's cruel and deadly. But what does it replace? It replaces something that expanded health care to 20 million people and growing. It said if you're a woman, no longer is that a pre-existing medical condition. It said if you had a pre-existing condition, no longer would you be discriminated in your access to health care. It said if you were a student, you could stay, or a worker, you could stay on your parents' policy until 26 years old. I say these things because it's important to know what we are losing when we go down the path that they are putting forth. And it's very as deadly and cruel as Raul said. And all of this to give a tax break to the wealthiest people in our country. It is a tax bill disguised as a health care bill. Martin Luther King has said that of all of the inequalities, the most cruel and stunning is that of health care, the inequality in health care, because people will die. So I am so proud of our House Democrats sticking together, working with the Senate Democrats to stop, whether they call it a wolf in sheep's clothing or a Trojan horse that has been rolled out as a discussion document today. All of it is very harmful, and while they may throw a few early crumbs, the long-term harm that they will do to our children, to our seniors, to our veterans. Between 1 and 2 million of our veterans are on Medicaid. And this goes on, the list goes on and on. So I thank all of you for what you do to not only to provide health care, but to keep America healthy. It's about a healthier America, prevention, being in the loop sooner, as your patient was not, being in the loop sooner. What an eloquent statement this our guests in white jackets are to this Capitol. I hope the message is not lost on the Republicans in the Senate. And if they pass something, we will fight it when it comes back to the House for the good of the American people. With that, I acknowledged him before, but I'm pleased to yield to our distinguished House Democratic Whip, Steny Hoyer, a champion in passing the Affordable Care Act. Mr. Hoyer of Maryland.
Thank you so much, Leader. The white coats are coming. The white coats are coming. The white coats are coming. And the blue scrubs are here as well. All right. And they have the same message. Do no harm. That's the message. Do no harm, Congress. Do no harm to the rights of Americans to have health care for themselves and their families. Do no harm. I want to thank Dr. Ruiz and Dr. Bera and all of you. I not only want to thank you for being here, but I want to thank you for being in the hospital room, in the emergency room, in the intensive care unit, where our friend Steve Scalise is right now. You make a difference in the lives of all of us. You keep our families safe. You keep ourselves safe. You make America healthier. Thank you all for what you do. We are here today with doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals from around the country who know firsthand how harmful Trumpcare will be to their patients and their ability to serve. Today, Senate Republicans are releasing a bill. Today, they're releasing a bill and they want to pass it just in a few days. Imagine that they wrote in secret. Just as dangerous as the House bill, however. A bill that even President Trump called mean. Do no harm. Republicans ought to remember that they control the government now, and they therefore will be responsible for the adverse consequences of their actions and for the adverse consequences of their negligence in making sure that the terms of the Affordable Care Act are in fact being carried out. House Democrats will continue to oppose efforts to repeal the Affordable Care Act and replace it with Trumpcare. We know that Trumpcare will kick millions off their coverage. We don't have a CBO score on what, and we don't know much of what the Senate did because we're just starting to read it. But we know millions of Americans are going to lose health insurance. Significantly raised premiums in 2018, the CBO is going to say that, making those with pre-existing conditions uninsurable. Force states to kick millions off Medicaid and cut providers, and impose an age tax. These providers are here today because they want to protect their patients. That's what they are committed to do. That's what they take an oath to do, to protect their patients. And it is that responsibility that they are carrying out today as they appear here with all of us. I'm proud to stand with them. I'm proud to stand with my colleagues. I'm proud to stand with Dr. Ruiz and Dr. Barra and other medical personnel to say to our friends in the Congress of the United States who don't like the Affordable Care Act but are not prepared to fix it, they want to replace it and reduce the insurance coverage that people have today and put them more at risk. Do no harm. Now I'm pleased to yield to my dear friend from California, Dr. Ami Bera. Ami?
Well, I'm proud to stand here with my colleagues. First, with my colleagues in the healthcare profession, the doctors and nurses and patient advocates that are out here today, but also my colleagues that are going to be down there on the House floor and in that chamber fighting to protect patients. Because that's what this is all about. When I pulled out my white coat, I looked at these buttons that are up here. They represent some of the student-run free clinics that I've worked in over the past 22 years. And there was a time where you would see patients coming in there who had no insurance. You know, the person who may have felt that breast lump, and they're worried about cancer. And it is a horrible feeling as a doctor sitting there trying to figure out what we're going to do. You can see that tenseness on their face. Well, with the passage of the Affordable Care Act, we've cut the number of uninsured down significantly. Millions of Americans have now gotten access to health care, and that is a good thing. And when I see that patient, and now when I see that patient in the free clinic, I have a place where I can send them to try to get that health insurance. So that is what this is all about. This is a time for doctors and nurses to stand up because we've seen that conversation. We've been in that exam room, and now is the time for us to speak up and protect patients. Do no harm, as the minority whip said, but let's also do good. That's part of the oath that we take, to do good and do no harm. So this is about protecting the American patient. That's what this is about. And we are going to do this every day, and we're going to do it with our colleagues that have been in the exam room advocating on behalf of our patients. So thank you to my colleague, Dr. Ruiz. We'll be down there fighting, and to all of you, thank you for that. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Magani Rao.
Good afternoon. Thank you. As an OBGYN caring for the women of East Baltimore, I have seen time and time again how essential the Affordable Care Act has been in improving the health of our community. The ACA has saved countless lives, plain and simple. The American Health Care Act, or the AHCA, that the House has passed and the Senate is pushing behind closed doors will threaten the health of our nation. This bill will turn back the clock on women's health by destroying the progress that we have made under the Affordable Care Act. Before the passage of the ACA, I saw far too many women in the emergency room due to lack of access to health care. I have cared for a 22-year-old first-time mother who discovered that she was rejected from health insurance as she was now considered a pre-existing condition for simply having had a C-section. The ACA outlaws pre-existing conditions so that those who need health care the most are not kept out of the system. I have cared for a 60-year-old grandmother who spent her life placing her family's needs above her own, only to discover that her chronic abdominal pain was due to advanced cervical cancer, much similar to Dr. Ruiz's story as well. The ACA would have paid for the preventive care that could have diagnosed her cancer early and saved her life. I have cared for a 35-year-old single mother raising 2 children on minimum wage, who required her 3rd blood transfusion in less than a year because she couldn't afford the medication that she needed to control excessive menstrual bleeding. The ACA expanded Medicaid, allowing her to see me, her physician, and obtain her medications regardless of her income. These women are just some of the 23 million individuals who will lose access to health care if the AHCA passes. Remember, these women are not just patients, they're not just statistics. They are mothers, they are daughters, they are sisters. They are the backbone of our society. Senate, don't pull the rug out on women. Protect the advances we've made and vote no on the AHCA. Thank you. Next, I would like to introduce my friend and Doctors for America colleague, Dr. Krishnan Narasimhan, a family medicine practitioner.
Hi. As we speak, the Senate is rushing to pass its version of the American Health Care Act. This bill would cause 23 million people to lose their coverage. Now, I know to some lawmakers this may be an abstract number, but for physicians, we know what harm this will do for our patients. Let me tell you about one of those patients. He's a 54-year-old gentleman that I've been taking care of for the past few years. If you can believe it, he first got insurance at age 52. 52. And that was through the Affordable Care Act. Now, he'd worked full-time jobs for many years, but never had health benefits. He has diabetes and high blood pressure, but he went without treatment for years because he couldn't afford the medications. Now, his insurance allows him to get the care that he needs. His blood pressure and blood sugars are improving. However, if this bill passes, he will lose his coverage and go back to putting his health on the back burner. Now, we've seen this story before, and sadly, we know what it means for our patients. We call on lawmakers to choose patients over politics. We call on the Senate to reject this bill, which will not provide the level of coverage that the Affordable Care Act does. Now is the time for us to stand up for our values. Stand up to preserve coverage. Stand up to protect our patients. Please stand with us for your health and for the nation's health. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce a colleague, OBGYN physician, Dr. Connie Bohan.
Thank you. It's a real honor to be here.
My name's Connie Bohan, and I'm a practicing OBGYN here in Washington, D.C. In my career, I've had the privilege to care for women of every age and life stage. While no two patient stories are the same, the need for comprehensive health care is universal. That's why we must preserve the landmark women's health gains achieved by the Affordable Care Act. Educating women about contraception is a central component of my job. While this often means helping women align their reproductive health with their personal and professional goals, since last year these discussions have increasingly focused on the Zika virus. Many of my patients are concerned about the risk of transmission while traveling. For women who are not trying to become pregnant, preventing unplanned pregnancy is the key to preventing Zika and its potential devastating effects on the newborn. The ACA ensured that women have coverage without cost sharing for women's preventive health services, including contraception. However, ACA repeal efforts and the Trump administration appear poised to jeopardize this access for millions. This will leave my patients without options to protect themselves from unplanned pregnancy and the attendant health concerns. Over the last 6 years, I've worked very hard to try to reduce maternal mortality here in D.C. And one of the most important components of preventing maternal mortality is access to care. Pregnant women must have access to care. Current repeal efforts will limit access to the preventive and maternity care coverage guaranteed by the ACA, leaving more women without the coverage they need to have healthy pregnancies and healthy babies. Unfortunately, and quite tragically, in my experience as an OBGYN, this can mean the difference between life and death, not only for women, but for their babies. Access to contraception and maternity care make up only part of my work as an OBGYN. Women must have wide-ranging and they have evolving healthcare needs that have to be addressed. We should leave those decisions in the exam room. It belongs between the patient and her trusted healthcare provider, not the legislature. The House and Senate ACA repeal efforts threaten the health and well-being of America's women and families. No one should be left with less coverage than they have today. Please, we cannot turn the clock back on women's health. Now I'd like to turn the podium over to Dr. Jay Lee.
Thank you, Dr. Bohan, and thank you to Dr. Ruiz and Dr. Berra for the opportunity to speak on behalf of my patients. To my fellow Americans and the country I love, together with America's healthcare professionals, I rise up to oppose the mean-spirited and cruel effort by congressional Republicans to take away health coverage from 23 million Americans, my patients, your neighbors. I declare that if all people are created equal, endowed with certain inalienable rights, that among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we hold this truth to be self-evident. Trumpcare lacks heart and must be stopped. My name is Dr. J.W. Lee. I love being a family physician and am proud to serve as Chief Medical Officer at the Venice Family Clinic, a community health center serving 25,000 patients in Los Angeles, California. About 10,000 of our patients risk losing their health insurance under the heartless Republican plan that punishes the elderly, the poor, and children most. Before the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, 46 million people could not afford health insurance, could not afford to pay for health care out of pocket, could not qualify for Medicaid, often being told, "I'm sorry, you're just not sick or poor enough." One of these people, a middle-aged financial services professional named Kenrick Bascom, lost his health insurance in 2007 and was unable to get reinsured until he became covered thanks to Medicaid expansion under the Affordable Care Act. For the record, 31 states, including California and Kentucky, plus the District of Columbia, have expanded Medicaid since 2014. And coverage came just in time for Kenrick. You see, he'd been suffering from back and abdominal pain for years. Soon after he got his insurance card, he scheduled an appointment with one of Venice Family Clinic's primary care specialists. And thanks to important tests he otherwise could not have afforded, Kenrick learned he had cancer in his left kidney. He was referred to a surgeon to have the cancer removed, and today, Kenrick is cancer-free, all because he was covered by Medicaid and able to access quality primary care when he needed it most. So let me ask you, is this not the outcome we want? Why would we go back to the days of needless suffering and medical bankruptcies? Why would we want anything other than health and happiness for all Americans? This is not a political issue of right or left. This is a human issue of right or wrong. Repealing the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act is morally wrong. Without coverage, as many as 45,000 lives will be lost. Health is the keystone of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And health coverage is the key that unlocks the healthcare system. Every human being deserves to have a copy of that key. No human deserves to die because they don't. Don't mess with my patients. Trust me, I'm a doctor.
As you can tell, there are doctors across this nation that stay up late at night thinking about their patients, thinking about what the right diagnosis and the right treatment, thinking about whether or not their patients are going to be able to comply with the regimen, with the medications as best needed for them. There are many people here who have lost sleep over the patient who was admitted to the hospital with advanced cancer, and now we're concerned about their lives simply because they didn't have access to preventative care, to their primary care physician. As all the doctors here have told you, this is not a political question. This is a moral question of how we want to treat each other as Americans. This is a question of our oath to first do no harm and to treat those that need our help. This is not about policy, it's about people. And people's experience drives our policy, and people must take center stage, not party, not whether you're Democrat or you're Republican. This has to be about the everyday experience of people, even healthy people who are vulnerable in getting car accidents and getting diagnosed with the unfortunate diagnosis of cancer, even at a young age, even those that believe that they are invincible. Because as emergency physicians can tell you day in and day out, we see that case of that healthy individual who is in a car accident or gets diagnosed with a bad diagnosis. At this point, I'd like to open it up for questions for anybody that was any of the speakers here. And if there's no questions, then I know that there are reporters that would like to speak with some of you up here, and everybody's accessible. Are you with the media? Okay, we'll do a question afterwards then. You can ask individual questions of the speakers and all the other physicians that are here, and you can take this back to any physician or nurse that you know and ask them if they prefer their patients to be uninsured. Ask them. I challenge you to ask any doctor, Republican or Democratic doctor, if they prefer their patients to not have health insurance. I can guarantee you that every doctor, every nurse that cares for patients want their patients to have health insurance. So I think with that, we're going to end this press conference, and you can ask individual questions from anybody that is standing up here. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming.
So that was a long one, guys. If you're still on with us, thanks for joining us. There you go. There's all the doctors outside the Capitol, in front of the Capitol Dome, discussing from a doctor's perspective, from a physician's perspective, knowing what's important for their patients. And, of course, they were led by Nancy Pelosi at the top of that. But, yeah, interesting stuff today. A lot of healthcare talk. That's what the day is all about. But like Cam and I were discussing, it's likely to take a while for this even to come down the pipeline, right? Like the votes.
Yeah, I mean, we still, you know, the fact that we still are looking at two versions of this bill, the House side and the Senate side, means we're still kind of a long way away from getting any kind of resolution. Even after the two versions, assuming the two versions pass their respective chambers, then they need to create what's called a committee to essentially work out the kinks in between the two versions of the bill. That takes a long time because, you know, as much as you think that Republicans and Democrats don't get along, the House and the Senate often also don't get along. You know, both think that their version is better, and so working out the kinks in that can take a long time. At which point it's got to finally go to Trump and get passed into law. So, you know, realistically, I don't think that we'll see any kind of finalization occurring until like maybe August, and that's assuming that you know, both of these versions actually pass their respective chambers.
Yeah, so all good points that we're seeing a lot of this in today's news, but we may not see the finality of this till, like you said, way down the line. So weeks later, months later, who knows? So there's your picture, guys. Live shot outside the Capitol. They may switch this up in a second, so we might lose the shot. But looks like a pretty cloudy day up there, actually. You were saying it's cloudy.
Yeah, cloudy. Very, very politically oriented day today for as far as breaking news goes. Nothing else really jumped in and interrupted it, but obviously, yeah. I mean, so weather stuff, obviously, with Cindy.
Weather stuff's big.
Touching ground,
yeah.
But other than that, it's just been, you know,
pretty normal Thursday.
Doing politician type things.
Yeah, especially in DC, that's what we get a lot of the coverage of. So that's what you're going to see a lot of our sources at. But of course, we also had the mayor at the top of the show discussing more localized problem. So kind of a mix of things. But now we're getting back that bump shot of the flooding. Looks like this might be Alabama again. This time, this is New Orleans instead of Alabama, but similar area right there. The Gulf, the flooding coming out from the Gulf. Oh my gosh. That's awesome. Didn't expect that one.
That's very cool.
That is cool. But I guess, wait, so this is under a bridge or this is water? I can't quite tell.
I think this may actually be a river. It just is much higher than normal. Is kind of what I'm thinking.
Absolutely. Take a look again at the Tchefuncte River as it almost seemingly is flowing north, flowing upstream right now. Even at one point we saw what appeared to be whitecaps as the wind just pushed that water upstream. One important thing to note is that unlike the South Shore where there are pumps that are able to pump some of this water out, the North Shore in St. Tammany Parish in particular relies directly on gravity flow. That means that the gravity drainage doesn't happen unless that water flows downstream and out of the mouth of the Tchefuncte River. Right now, they're hoping that that'll happen because if it doesn't, this water continues to build up. And this evening, when the tide changes to a high tide, it could get even worse. That's the very latest. Reporting live from Covington, Rob Krieger, Fox 8 News.
Cool. So we got to see his quick live shot. Look at him in the rain boots.
Yeah, standing on a dock of some kind, it looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you can see how high the water is just from them standing around.
Oh, they are on a dock.
Yeah.
Or I can't quite tell. Yeah.
And what looks like it's, you know, whatever, 3 inches up above that, where the dock is. So
really high, and he was
Yeah.
talking about, it's not even high tide yet, so
That's
wait till that happens,
crazy.
and then see just kind of how bad it gets.
So we were just talking about that. That being our more breaking kind of information today was the weather, a lot of the flooding down in the Gulf. We'll continue to kind of follow that if we have anything break in. But other than that, yeah, it was healthcare. It was the protests on the Hill in the one of the Senate buildings. I'm not sure which one that was, which one McConnell is in.
Yeah, that was a really kind of interesting little story.
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything about that in the morning meeting or anything
No,
like
yeah,
that. and
we
just
didn't know, and yet it was a planned out protest, it looked like.
Yeah, and people obviously had to be forcibly removed, literally picked up and carried out of the building while they were, screaming about, or against, I should say, the new Trumpcare bill.
Yeah, I'm just reading an article now. Police forcibly removed some of the healthcare bill protesters outside his office. I'm curious to know more about that. I might contact some of my friends who work over there. Well, guys, let's jump over now to Mike Pence. He is speaking at the Wilson Center, just to listen in for a little bit, not to keep it too monotonous, but just because this is live, we'll see what he has to say over here, and then we'll come back in the studio.
Futures who found themselves addicted to opiates, oftentimes beginning with prescription medication that then avalanched into heroin abuse. And then I've also sat at kitchen tables with parents who buried their children. And that's one of the reasons why the president tapped Governor Chris Christie, established a commission to confront opiate abuse in the country. And our administration is deeply committed to identifying new approaches, vigorous law enforcement, strong border security, but also finding ways that we can extend health and healing and compassion to people that are caught up in the grip of drug abuse and addiction in this country. That the approach has to be multifaceted, and President Trump is committed to advancing that in our administration.
Well, I appreciate your use of the word compassion. And maybe we could add prevention, too, if there's a way possibly to stop the process before it starts, because it is taking our youngest and best lives. Finally, you mentioned North Korea. I'm not going to ask you about North Korea, but it obviously is an urgent problem, something else that we know a great deal about at the Wilson Center. But North Korea, the problems in Syria, challenges around the world are also commanding U.S. attention. And so my question is, how does this conference last week on security and prosperity in Central America fit into our broader engagement in the region and in the world?
Well, I think the conference this week was an expression of the president's desire to ensure that we are advancing security and prosperity in our neighborhood. Even as we see widening asymmetrical threats developing around the world, we do well to see to Central and South America to ensure that these countries are advancing the kind of reforms that will encourage growth, promote prosperity, and promote security. And we also, I was with the president in Miami at the close of our conference when he announced that we were abandoning the last administration's policy on Cuba and implementing new approach, demanding that Cuba live up to the empty promises it made to the last administration about advancing reforms, and we'll hold them to that. And also the issue of Venezuela, which continues to spin out of control. The headlines this morning about even new developments in Venezuela. I think the president will continue to call for real leadership in the region, to bring pressure on Venezuela to hold elections as their constitution requires, and to uphold free elections and the rule of law. And so I think it's for us, it's about putting first things first. And the first priority of President Trump and this administration is the safety and security of the American people. That begins with ensuring the security and prosperity of nations in this region. But also, I think people have seen, as I mentioned in the first part of my speech, this is a president who will always stand for America first. But that doesn't mean America alone. What I've seen this president do in one meeting after another in the Oval Office, what the world saw him do as he traveled around the world, was engage. Engage on behalf of the United States. Engage on behalf of the people of this country and our vital national interests. But the United States is engaging. We're going to continue to engage. I think that involves diplomacy. The president believes strongly that involves rebuilding our military to ensure that we have the readiness and capability as the arsenal of democracy to see to our vital national interests around the world and those of our treaty allies. But it all begins close to home, and I hope as we confront challenges in the Middle East, in the Asia Pacific, and we confront them with firmness and resolve and with clarity, that our neighbors in this hemisphere know that we're also with them, we stand with them, and we are determined to advance the peace and security and prosperity of this hemisphere. So I thank you, Jane. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you all for making time to join us here today. God bless you.
If I just might add one thing, and then we'll applaud you again. You started your comments by talking about Lee Hamilton. And Lee Hamilton was a mentor to me as well as to you. And he was a role model in the United States Congress of the kind of person we need more of. He was well informed, he was humble, he was bipartisan, he was friendly. And if he were here, he'd be totally embarrassed by these comments. He provided enormous leadership at the Wilson Center for 12 years. And with other Hoosiers like Dick Lugar, showed that bipartisanship can work. So it's just my plea to a town where there is too much partisanship that Lee Hamilton remain as a model, not just to the Wilson Center and to me and to Vice President Pence, but to all of us. And in this spirit, thank you so much for coming here. It's a huge honor for us.
So there he goes, the Pence event. Just we caught the tail end of that, guys. If you're just joining us, welcome to our stream. We're almost done here for the day, just for our midday show. A lot of politics today. So hopefully you found that engaging and interesting if you were jumping in or jumping in and out of our show. Not sure what they'll switch this one to here, but again, this is a sort of a wide shot. The Wilson Center here in Washington, D.C., a bipartisan center focused on global policy. And yeah, we just lost it there, so we'll bring it back in. Molly here and intern Cam for this Thursday. Now, Cam, you're out tomorrow. You're going away for the weekend.
Out tomorrow. I'm going to Youngstown, New York, up close to Buffalo.
Cool.
For the weekend for a little family get-together. So
sounds good.
I'm excited, taking advantage of my version of the long weekend.
Yeah.
And then back in the newsroom on Monday.
Totally cool. Well, we're so glad to have Cam here to chat it up in the digital newsroom, and you guys can catch us every weekday, including tomorrow. I'll be here in the newsroom at 11 a.m. here in our YouTube stream. We also post often and update videos and stories on our Facebook page, Fox 5 DC, and our website, fox5dc.com, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all of the apps. We're on all of them. So you guys can catch us there. Looks like we don't have too much more coming in. I don't even see another source about the flooding, but we'll have to see sort of how the afternoon pans out. But as usual, you can keep up to date with any breaking videos or interesting trending stuff and web stories as well on our Facebook page. So our timeline there will have those stories. All right, guys, with that, we're going to say goodbye and end the show. I'll see you tomorrow at 11. Cam's out till Monday, but we'll catch you then. So please do join us on our stream, Fox 5 Live, usually 11 to 2, definitely up at 11 till about 2 p.m. in the afternoon. All right, guys, we'll see you later. Take care. Happy Thursday. Going into Friday soon.